good? Okay. All right, we are going to start. This clock should start too. So we're going to start with our conversation with John Mcafee. John, when I first met you, I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago, and you talked a little bit about how you first got into Bitcoin, and I think you got in when it was like under $1, and then it went up to 30, and then like you sort of got discouraged when it went back down to $1. You want to talk a little bit about those early days and what you've learned since?
Well, I was never actually a Bitcoin investor. I mean, I know that's what this has turned into. This is what the blockchain slash cryptocurrency world has become. It's become a world of investors, a world that watches the market and all of that. That was never me. I had more money than God. I mean, I couldn't spend what I had. I was not interested in investing. When I was inundated by people wanting me to invest, no, I was interested in the technology and what that might mean for people. I mean, if we are slaves, which some say we are, I mean, the average life, you get up at 6, you commute to work, you come back home in time to get your wife to go to bed, you do this for 40 years, you go and watch, and your retirement pay will not cover your rent. Is that slavery? I don't know. I have no fucking idea. But if it is.
Well, there's the technology of the blockchain. There's also the economics of the blockchain. A lot of other early Bitcoin people got in because of libertarianism, because of Austrian economics, and certainly everybody who's called it a scam and it's going back to zero. All the hundreds of articles have been proven wrong, and the folks who were the true believers in the early days are now sitting quietly with pretty vast fortunes that the governments are going crazy now trying to track down. What are your thoughts about sort of, let's say, I know your prediction is 1 million, let's just see if we even get to 250,000 in the next few years, what that's going to do to disrupt sort of the newly tech elite, like happened with the richest people in the world now being tech people. But these will be tech people who are not even well known. What do you think it's going to do for the world order, and how are they going to fight back?
Well, everybody keeps saying Bitcoin, and you keep using the word. I'd rather talk about cryptocurrency and the blockchain as applied to the cryptocurrency world, and that's thousands of coins. And Bitcoin maximalists will say that's all bullshit. The minimalists will say the reverse. It doesn't matter. It's an open field where anybody can do anything. The important point for the individual is it gives you control over your own finances for the first time. Your wallet is your bank. We no longer need banks. And this is why governments are so fearful.
True. JP Morgan, of course, being the loudest voice of scam, and then they make JPM coin. And obviously they are thinking about their $32 billion in profits on credit cards. So obviously Bitcoin, and I'm not a maximalist either, I do think it's probably going to be the store of value for quite a while. And then there's sort of a race of who's going to be the payment company of choice, who's going to be a token of choice, who's going to be the decentralized storage token of choice, who's going to be, the platform for smart contracts of choice. Now, obviously, you're working on a truly decentralized exchange right now. What other areas, before we get to that, do you find fascinating on the technology side that you think will disrupt society other than the finance part?
I think the biggest disruptor of society is going to be privacy coins and distributed exchanges. And the reasons are, with privacy coins, nobody can track what you're doing. I mean, nobody. Well, depending on the privacy coins. Let's pick some biggies like Monarch. No one's been able to break it. No one ever will. You have absolute anonymity in your financial transactions. If you choose to tell the government that you made $100,000, please do so. But if you choose not to, there's no way that anyone will know. This is the important point. Privacy coins and distributed exchanges, which can't be shut down. Because the government's now been shut down, a centralized exchange, which will fuck us all, or decentralized, which can't ever be closed. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. That's the direction I wanted to get into, because we had, and next up in person is a talk I'm having with John McCaleb, who goes all the way back to the e-donkey days and trying to do, what Napster then also failed to do because they were centralized, and then BitTorrent succeeded because they were completely impossible to shut down. And then Apple and Spotify came in and made a deal with records. Everybody's like, it's too hard to use this decentralized stuff. We're willing to pay X a month. How do you see, because again, there are certain risks with privacy coins. I mean, this is the first year now that the IRS is asking, do you have cryptocurrency? Have you ever bought cryptocurrency? And so obviously you say no, and then you drive up with a Ferrari the next day. I like to say, you can't seize cryptocurrency, but you can seize people. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, okay, we keep mixing two things. We keep mixing the market and the trading and the money to be made off of the exchanging of cryptocurrencies versus the value of cryptocurrencies in and of themselves. Like I said, Monero, because I can buy almost anything with Monero and other coins, from houses to automobiles to clothes, even to bulletproof jackets. I'm telling you from experience. So that's what cryptocurrencies should be for. It should be for our freedom, not for our financial gain, which you think brings freedom, and I promise you will not. I've been there, done that. No.
And freedom is obviously an interesting word because the founding fathers talked a lot about freedom, and it seems since the Patriot Act and 9/11, we're much less free and much more surveilled. And will there be societies that sort of rebel against this as we go, into a increasingly nationalistic instead of global world, where you're going to have some place that will try to become the Cryptopia, and like they were trying to do with Liberland, or will there be actual places, like the Maldives or something, that actually say, yes, come on down, and people will, like Roger Ver, just say, I'm not American anymore, I'm going to be a resident of St. Kitts.
I'm not saying I'm not American anymore. I am to the very heart and core. It's my home. That's a different story. Well, what a question. Cryptocurrency is one of two things. It is a tool for the people to free themselves financially, or it's a tool for governments to gain ultimate autocratic control. Because already with social media, Facebook and Google and what have you, everything about us is known except the money part. And even that is known a little bit because we have to go through central banks and the IRS is monitoring every penny. So, no. Financial freedom from the individual has to be the way we go. Now, will we? This is the question. Will the powers that be manage to delude us into believing that the crypto dollar is now going to be the thing that saves you all? And the only thing about it is we're going to monitor every penny and where it went. And soon that'll be all there is. And then the IRS's problems and the FBI's problems and all the regulatory problems in the world are over. But then that's the end of freedom for the individual.
Well, that does seem to be where sovereign currencies are going, but that doesn't mean that if you have that just simply gets rid of cash. It's not going to get rid of privacy coins and cryptocurrency unless, like India was talking about, banning everything except the digital rupee. And so I guess people will move, just like they are with countries now, they'll move to nations that they think they have more freedom. And, it's hard to go and monitor and arrest hundreds of millions of people. And I think marijuana, you're talking about smoking a joint later in this interview, is a good example because it is still illegal in every inch of the United States. And yet we're in Las Vegas, and it started out as medicinally legal, now it's recreationally legal. And when you have tens of millions of people, it's hard to call everyone a criminal. Do you think that we will get to the point where you have hundreds of millions of people globally and tens of millions in the United States who basically think that freedom means being able to do what you want with your own money and not have to be under 1% of terrorist funding.
Yeah, I don't think we need hundreds of governments. I think one or two is our critical mass, maybe three that are full-time, not full-time, but truly into the cryptosphere. That's all we need. And if they are scattered across the world in some random pattern, we can't be shut down, people. Please, God. 3 or 4 million people in the world, all of them choosing, knowing what repercussions may come, and it won't be bad. Choosing to do something can't be stopped. Do you understand? I mean, I'm a statistician and I know numbers. We're almost there, people. We're close. But you've got to stop looking at crypto as your means to wealth and instead as your freedom from slavery of governments and financial institutions that control you.
Do you think this will start in the third world where they have no access to the financial systems first, or will it start in the developed nations where it so far has been, more easy to find larger numbers? I mean, will this help Venezuela, and how fast can they sort of route around? Because at least there they don't have as many sophisticated snooping tools as they do in the Five Eyes countries.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you're asking an extraordinarily complex question to look into the future with literally at every month 1,000 different possible branches. I do know this, that it will succeed one way or the other. It will succeed utterly because the poor people or the disadvantage of those who are bankless rise up or get together. Or it's the millennials in America, and that's a huge group of people, count them, and they all are focused on one thing, which is Japanese anime, right, or a few other things. It is them. I don't know. I just know that this is Pandora's box being lived in our current time, and it's been opened. And
I agree with you, and I'm actually writing a book right now called Pandora's Blocks, because I got Michael Lewis's agent, and I think that it is going to change the world of society, and that's going to be one of the big struggles is when DEXs take off. Meanwhile, the governments where they get together sometimes and they don't even vote. They just have the G7 get together. They say, well, it's all going to be for our world now. All crypto has to behave like banks, and you can't go and send to a wallet unless it's a centralized exchange. And the question is, who will they arrest? How many will they arrest? Are they just going to sort of take somebody famous to make an example, and everybody scurries for the corners? Obviously, we've seen what's happened to Kim.com. We've seen what's happened to Julian Assange. You're obviously not here in person in Las Vegas for a reason. And, as a freedom fighter, what are your steps on your end to launch this decentralized exchange, and how do you see it spreading and others spreading?
First and foremost, I don't consider it mine. I mean, I was pivotal, obviously, in this development, but it was a whole bunch of people. Secondly, we don't have much private ownership. We're giving the source both to the smart contracts on all the blockchains we develop, and to our portal itself. We're allowing people to start their own portals using our software, and they don't have the wherewithal to take our source and figure it out. We'll do it for them at $395. All right, that's barely our cost, although it doesn't take us long. This is for the people, for fuck's sake. I mean, this is the first exchange that can't ever be shut down. If you take McAfeeDex.com and the US says, no, we no longer have that. Well, who gives a shit? We already have 20 portals. We'll have 100 by the end of the year. Or are you going to shut down the whole world? You can't. Do you understand? It can't be shut down. So when the SEC finally puts their hands on my collar and toasts me in, which I hope won't happen until I'm ready to die anyway, I will simply say, I didn't know you guys were even interested. I also would have put something in here for you, but I'm sorry. It's been done. I can't fix it. I can't change it. Maybe I'll build one for the SECs for themselves. I don't know. But this is, I'm giving this to the people, for fuck's sake. You know, and right now, I admit, it's not using it. It's just, it's Ethereum-based coins. Admittedly, there are thousands of them, but mostly trash. However, it's on beta. We're coming out next week with Tron, at the end of the year with Binance, with EOS, with NEO, and then the second quarter of 2020, you will have full cross-chain transactions. No listing fees. You want to list your coin? Go ahead. Press the button at the top of our page. Put in the technical specs. You're listed. No maker fees. 0.25% on taker fees. That's the only thing, and it just keeps us running, folks. So I did this for you. End story.
Very interesting. Obviously, there's been a couple of DEXs that the U.S. has gone and like stagned the people and said, hey, you know, we're the world cops, so you're going to go down. But, you know, I think that if your system and others like it proliferate to the, you know, extent that it's 2-3% of the world's population, just look at the amount of times that you've had ignored cash economies, right, in poor places like, you know, there's certainly a lot of people who get paid under the table to be maids, to be, you know, gardeners or whatever. And, you know, I mean, Trump sweeps notwithstanding at the border, it's sort of just considered spillage. Will this ever be considered spillage in the crypto world when everything's digital dollars? Or will it be just sort of, I guess that's the question. Do you think there'll be more sort of militarism against freedom? Or they'll just sort of, you know, take what they can and then just sort of realize that some people are going to slip through the system.
Okay, that's a long, detailed question. The first part, with the SEC being the world policeman, where the SEC do what we want, the reason I'm free to do what I'm doing is come and find me. Until you do, fuck you. Excuse my language. So the second question is, will there be more militarism against crypto? Yes! Wake up! Good God Almighty, this is the greatest risk to world governance since the invention of writing. Please see this. This could completely cripple every world government. Now, what would be the repercussions in terms of financial chaos? I don't know. But I do know that the direction we are headed now is not the direction I want my children and grandchildren to follow. And your grandchildren and your children, if you have it.
Good points. So I'm going to have my last question, and I think we might have time for one or two from the audience. Libra, obviously you can see how quickly everybody reacted to that. And then the Chinese reacted and said, you know, we're okay doing something like that. Could China basically be the Libra of the world, and that would upset the national, I mean, we're not going to invade China. What do you think about China being the next Libra?
I think China's going to come up with the most clever, nationalistic cryptocurrency, one which everybody loves for reasons which I'm not even sure of yet, but they will convince you that it's in your interest. And the entire world will copy China's. Not the entire world of people, but the entire world of governance and the pyramidal power structure of which banks and financial institutions play a leading part. So yes, China will lead this, but not on our behalf. And what they come up with, I promise, is going to be something to analyze and talk about for centuries.
Thank you, John. We've got time for 2 questions from the audience.
Well, I don't take audience questions.
Well, in that case, we're not going to take audience questions. And thank you for the delightful conversation, John. And perhaps, since you won't be able to come and see us in Puerto Rico, perhaps we'll have a beer in Uzbekistan sometime soon.
Okay, you come to Puerto Rico, So you might as well accept the questions.
I said since you can't come to Puerto Rico, we'll have a beer in Uzbekistan sometime in the near future. All right, everybody, give it up for John Mcafee. And that's a wrap.
Okay. Can you believe that?
Okay. Usually these Skype things don't work too well, but again,
That worked great.
that worked great, yeah. And we were supposed to have Brock here yesterday in person, and he had to fly to New York, but he'll be on just like that at 1:30, I believe, today. So we still have all of our speakers that were supposed to be here, and one that couldn't be here for legal reasons, but still was able to spec in. Now, in person, do we have John in the room yet? Somebody who's outside just working on his laptop. He's up in about 5 minutes. Might as well get him seated. Xenia, can you go find Erica and just get John settled? I don't want to call a break because then it'll take an hour for everybody to get, sort of settled in again. So let's see how the Bitcoin price is doing. Again, every CoinAgenda since the first one, the price of Bitcoin has ended up higher at the end of the conference than at the beginning. We were 9,030 at the start of the conference. One was as 9,900. This morning I think it was about 93. And we'll check later today. Any questions for me? Any questions about CoinAgenda? Yes.
Do you know the name of this decentralized exchange or not?
I think it's just called McAfee, man. And actually, one of our sponsors, our gold sponsor, BlockBlocks, is working with Illumini and some of the other folks to put out some variations. They're actually, I believe, looking to build some things with John that will be variations of them. And again, it's open source code, so you probably see several variations from the completely pirate decks to some things that maybe just have pieces of regulation in different jurisdictions. Okay. All right, well, it's my great pleasure to introduce John McCaleb. Jen needs no introduction, but I'll give him one anyway. So a lot of people don't realize how long he's been in the space of innovation. Many of you know he was the pioneer of actually building, not running through struggles, but building Mumcox and TX. And prior to that, he was one of the pioneers of the whole decentralized sharing space with eDonkey, and went on to then co-found Ripple, and is now the founder and I guess you don't say CEO of Stellar, sort of like.
Yeah, I'm not the executive anymore. I'm the chief architect.
Chief architect of Stellar, right? So, so we'll sit down and we're gonna chat. And do we have another microphone here so I don't have to stand up?
Come in.
I stood up for Mac because he's on the screen. Great, testing. Okay, so we got to know each other a little bit at the Satoshi Roundtable, which is a great place for a lot of sort of the early people to kind of talk about what's happening in the future. But let's go back a little bit to the past and how did you decide to become a disruptor?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think of myself that way, but yeah, there was no conscious decision. I just like working on things that are interesting to me, and I think that can change the world for the better. So I've always been drawn to things like that. Is
tell me about eDonkey and sort of where that vision came from, and sort of what the ride was like up, and then, you know, obviously everybody from that era just got their first taste of, you know, government and industry, you know, interference and regulation.
Yeah, so eDonkey was a super interesting problem to work on. It was the first time I had made a big decentralized system like that. And
This was like, what, 2000?
I think I started working on it in 98, 99. And yeah, it was interesting to me because it basically like kind of democratized access to information and allowed people to like both publish and consume stuff all over the world. And yeah, you know, like that aspect of it was like super interesting to me, that you could kind of route around like these central publishers. And it's cool working on such a peer-to-peer system because it's very organic. You're not just working on this one isolated piece of software, but it's how this piece of software interacts with all the other nodes out there in the network, which is pretty interesting. So.
And so, as we're seeing sort of a theme over the last few decades, technology comes first, and then the entrenched powers say, whoa, this is going to do something that, because it's completely legal to go and buy an album and hand it to your friend to play, and then they can hand it to their friend to play. But when you make it digital, all of a sudden, no, can't do that. Same thing with a library book. The libraries go and don't pay additional copyright fees for the books that they lend out. So what was sort of the first that you and your team kind of heard that, like, you know, the powers that be don't like what you're doing?
Let's see, we started talking to the recording industry probably in like 2004, 2005, and we were trying to get them to actually, because one of the things that we realized is that people are using this not because they want to steal stuff, but because they want convenience. They want easy access to these things, and you know, maybe they just want one song and they want it on their computer, right? Understand people didn't have mobile phones, well, they were just RPG, but the traditional distribution methods just were not keeping pace with it. So, and this is what we've found now, because now there's like Spotify and you know, Netflix and all these things where people can get this stuff instantly, and that's all people wanted. And we were like, hey, just provide a way for people to pay for this stuff, and they will do it. But they were not on board. So
Sometimes it takes a while, because it was interesting, because when I was running Internet Wire, which became MarketWire, one of my lead funders was Howard Winblad. And Hank Berry, the partner there, they put, I think it was like $11 million into Napster, because they were convinced they could go make a deal with record companies, because they had actually surveyed their, you know, cross-section of 60 million users, and something like 80% said they would pay $20 a month for just unlimited access and legal. And so they went to the record companies. They even hired someone, Milt Dolan from the record companies, to sit down and make deals, and they looked and said, no, you're criminals. We want you to go away and die. How dare you tell us not to make shiny discs and do whatever we want? Then Steve Jobs came around, and I think all of a sudden when iTunes started nipping away and they saw the world changing, then all of a sudden Spotify came with the exact same proposition with a possible tweak that they made a lot more money than the artists and about half the price, and boom, they're a multi-billion-dollar company. So sometimes you can be I think the saying is that you can tell the pioneers are the ones with the arrows in the back. And so obviously you were incredibly early there. Talk about your path into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency from decentralized, you know, sharing. I mean, obviously a logical step, but there must have been a moment that you stumbled upon or were told or just, you know, found out about the white paper and.
Yeah. So after eDonkey, I worked on some other project that really didn't pan out, and then as that was kind of winding down, I was just browsing the internet and like went to Slashdot, which I hadn't been to for years, and saw that first kind of post about Bitcoin in the white paper. And when I read it, I was like super excited. I really didn't think it was possible to solve that problem before I read the paper, and it was super interesting to me. And yeah, about 2 weeks later, I had made Knockoffs, the exchange, because at that time there wasn't really a good way to buy or sell Bitcoin, and I kind of wanted to experiment with the technology and learn the system, and that's the best way to do that, is like make something. So so I've always thought Bitcoin is a super awesome idea, and been kind of enamored by it. So.
And how did Mark Karpeles come into the picture? Because you think with you, built this, you maybe build a team in California, or you maybe go to Europe or something. I mean, Japan seemed like an unusual place to sort of, sell or license the product to.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to keep in mind that the Bitcoin world back then was like much, much different than it is today. There was, I think when I joined Bitcoin Talk, which is where everyone that knew about Bitcoin had an account there was about 2,000 people. I think by the time I gave Mt. Gox to Mark, there was probably, I don't know, like 5,000, 10,000 people, something like that. There just wasn't a lot of interest, so there wasn't a lot of options. And yeah, I basically, Mt. Gox started to obviously be something, after I made it, I kind of made it out of lark as a hobby kind of thing. And then obviously people were using it, but I didn't really want to kind of exchange long term. That isn't like what I'm interested in. So I started looking for someone to take it over. I came across Mark. He was like in the community, in the Bitcoin community. Seemed like he would be able to do it. Obviously, pretty confident turned out. But yeah. So that's that. So I've never actually met him. Like it just I found it kind of hated the site to.
And you only found Brian Armstrong at the time.
No, I know. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. It's about a year difference. So talk about then how, when you were then looking for something else, the next level of innovation, how the whole concept and execution in the early days of Ripple.
Yeah, so like I said, I've always thought Bitcoin was this awesome idea, but I've always been kind of bothered by the mining aspect of it. I think it's, if you can solve the consensus algorithm without mining, obviously that's a better situation because, literally billions of dollars are spent on mining. And I think people don't really realize it now, but it's a huge drain on the Bitcoin economy, essentially, because all that money has to flow out every year to pay for electricity and people to work on these things, and it's essentially this big drag on the ecosystem, like environmental concerns aside, right? And so, but Bitcoin inspired me and several other people to start thinking of other ways you can solve this consensus issue, which is really what mining's about. I mean, it's coin distribution as well, but it's sort of a side effect, I think. And then, so I came up with the idea that kind of led to Ripple. And then along the way, we kind of realized there's a lot of other things you could do with the network, not just be this digital token, which is a good idea, but you can do other things like represent other kinds of value in there. Like now this whole craze of stable coins, I mean, that's the idea behind that. Is like a lot of times people really want to trade in dollars or euros, things like that, and those should be able to be digitally represented. And you can do a decentralized exchange, all these kind of things. We were definitely the first ones to implement something like that, and those kind of ideas got bundled into Ripple. So.
Okay, and then you were, really one of the first crypto companies to go out and, before there was any kind of hint of how you do it properly, to raise money. Dr. Beer was an early backer, and this is way before the ICOs, and then you had both a company and a cryptocurrency. Did you kind of come up with that structure, or some of your partners, or you sort of together just said, how are we going to do this so that we have something for profit, and we also have something that can work with banks, etc., institutions, and also have something that really plays along the lines of the concepts of decentralization and having a currency that can be used anywhere without permission in the world.
Yeah, so I think Bitcoin is obviously extremely decentralized, and there's no central company driving it forward, and that's a really awesome model, but it's very hard to replicate. I think there is some maybe middle ground between that and just a fully centralized Libra type thing, right? Where it's there's a company that is helping getting the network started, and then can kind of step back and let the thing run once it reaches a certain level of maturity. And that was the idea, is that we can build this team. We want to build a team around it of really high quality people. We're gonna have to pay them, obviously, so there needs to be some way to do that, so you raise money and this kind of thing. So yeah.
So we won't get into any of the founder fights and things like that with Ripple, but you at some point decided, I think I want to do something different my way, still based on a lot of the similar concepts, but then improving others. Tell us about the initial vision of Stellar, and then how you went on launching it.
Yeah, so I left Ripple in about a year. I was actually going to just do something totally different, but then about a year later, it seemed like there was still this huge opportunity and kind of need for this universal payment network, because what Stellar is a way to link any kind of financial institution, like whether it's a bank or a mobile money thing, to any other, like whether you're using one currency or if you're holding dollars or want to send somebody pesos, all these things should interoperate. Like it should work a lot more similar to email. Because like when you're using email, you don't think about like, hey, I'm on Gmail, I can't send this over to the Yahoo account. It all just works, right? Like it's the same underlying protocol, and money's not that way at all. And so it's very clear to me that there needs to be some universal system like this. And that was sort of the idea behind Ripple, but I just didn't feel like it was being executed in the right way. And so Stellar was an attempt to kind of do it the way I had originally envisioned, essentially, where you want this thing to be as like open and neutral as possible, and spread as widely as you can. So.
And you've had quite a bit of success, I think, relevant to other cryptocurrencies, and being able to, really have the community feel like you're, not game, that you're open source, and you're able to build things on top of it. A lot of folks, have built things on top of Stellar, and yet you're able to deal with something like IBM. How does that work? Is it sort of having, kind of just outreach to different communities, or having different aspects of what the token technically does, and how do you put these together? What's your thought process when you get up in the morning about what's next for Stellar?
Yeah, so I mean, all along we focused on, I think, the most important thing, which I think is like making this technology actually useful for people, because I think a lot of people that have been in this space for years, like I have, are a little bit disappointed on the lack of actually uptake by people actually using this stuff. Like, there's a lot of interest in the world and a lot of like speculation and a lot of people that are excited about it, but like to the extent this stuff is actually affecting people's lives is actually pretty low, especially given how much interest there is. And so all along our goal has been, how do we solve that? How do we get actually people using this technology? And I think that mission and focus is to not be like overhyped and not do a lot of like vaporous stuff. And I think that leads like companies like Franklin Templeton or IBM and these folks to actually like realize that what we're building is a solid thing and want to build on it. So that's I think the.
So I want your thoughts, since I asked a few people about this, on the whole situation with the Libra, which looks like the U.S. is probably going to kill it off, and then perhaps with WeChat, which the Chinese government will take over. Obviously, WeChat and Facebook have billions of people using them currently, but if you've got the internet and you've got the education to be able to get a wallet, maybe a picture of how Stellar could do what Libra's trying to do.
Yeah, well, we're not trying to do exactly what Libra's trying to do, but I think what we're trying to do is more broad, essentially. Like it's like we want the money to be able to work like the way the internet works, where it doesn't matter where somebody is, it doesn't matter really who they are. Like you should be able to like send them value, right? So and I think that's important. It's important for like economic freedom, and it's important for like economic growth and for all kinds of dimensions. In the same way that access to information led to like this like the internet led to like this like increasing access to information and like democratized more level playing field, this will do for economic activity, which will improve everybody's lives, but like mostly, the people that are most left out of the current system will improve their lives the most, right? So to me, it's like super important that this is done right and done in this kind of open way, because this technology, like the internet, has like there's a lot of potential for abuse, right? And so, like personally, if like the Chinese government is making like the new financial infrastructure of the world, I think we'll end up in a very bad situation. So,
download the wallet and the camera comes with it.
Right, exactly.
So, tell me about some of the things that have been built on top of Stellar. I mean, you mentioned a couple of them. Which ones are you sort of the most proud of, or think have the biggest potential, other than the token itself, for solving problems or disruption?
Yeah, so there's a lot of really interesting projects out there. I think one of the things we realized is Stellar is a platform, right? So for the first years of our life, we were like trying to get other people to build upon it, but as a new platform, this is true across technology, not just in the crypto space, like other people that build platforms, they realize it's just very hard to get people to build on your platform. they're just never as motivated or never as interested or understand it as well as you do. So we've realized, and the tack we're taking now is we're building like the first real world use case, like the first thing that will actually make this thing used by real people out there. And that's this mobile cross-border wallet. It's so much like a global Venmo, and that'll be out. We're announcing it soon, but then I think it'll be usable.
Is that a name yet?
I don't know if we're announcing the name.
Okay.
But yeah. So there's that one, which I'm super excited about. There's other projects that are not in directly payments. There's the Franklin Templeton thing was super interesting. It's basically a money market fund that it's essentially like a stable coin that bears interest, which is super exciting. There's this other company, Realty Bits, which is like a tokenization of real estate, where you can buy some shares of real estate all over the world, which should open up that market to people everywhere, which would be pretty exciting. There's a lot of projects that have been built over the years that are cool.
You were one of the most successful entrepreneurs, I think, in the crypto space in terms of getting people to actually grow your user base through airdrops. I mean, you did a couple of massive airdrops, and I think everybody on the Bitcoin network, pretty much everybody on. And what was your thinking on that? And I think every time you did that, the value of the old net went up. Was a lot of people do airdrops, and people either forget them or just sell them or whatever. What was your thinking on that? Will it be more as you get to the next levels of growth? And what are your thoughts on just sort of like airdrops as a way of building community?
Yeah, I mean it's they're not easy to pull off. I think like we've done some that are successful. I would say they're successful, but maybe don't look successful from the outside. Like people don't even realize they were successful. And we've done some that are just clearly not working. And we've got an ongoing one with Keybase that seems very promising, and the way it's going. One of the things is that the ecosystem needs to be at a certain level of maturity for them to actually be successful, because the first one that we did, people got the limits and they're like, okay, what do we do with this? The network was just live, so there's actually like nothing they could spend on, nothing they could do. So then secret ones, we've kind of tried to focus on developers or through partners where they had stuff for them to do. I think if we are to do them, they'll be when the network is more mature, I think, when there's actually like a point to here's all these things you can do.
So I've been a big advocate for years. When people say my name and telephone company, they think of my $224 million lawsuit against AT&T. But once that problem of SIM swaps gets solved by just simply covering your damn password and letting you have a no port, which I've asked the FCC to do now. They come beyond. They tried chasing them down the hallways at Mobile World Congress last week. We'll eventually get there. But I think that just like cable TV saw the internet as the enemy, and now they make more money on that than they do on cable. And the mobile industry saw the internet as maybe the enemy, and they make a lot of money on that as well. I personally think that there's no way we get to 1 billion users without having major telephone companies either partner or buy exchanges so that you have automatic onboarding, or maybe even just work with one or two larger tokens. What are your thoughts on global adoption using mobile, and do you have any initiatives or thoughts on that Stellar could go and go through global telecoms to be able to automatically KYC, because they already know who you are?
Yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity for telcos to they're already kind of moving into the banking space with like mobile money efforts, things like M-Pesa and things like this. So there's definitely a big opportunity for them to like embrace crypto. And I mean, these aren't carriers, but like obviously like Samsung and HTC both have like their certain.
It's a good start to have the handsets.
Yeah, so that's a good, because you can actually have your thing be more secure than it is today, which is important. It's telcos have traditionally been pretty slow to adopt things, and they're slow to move. So we'll see, but yeah, it's definitely a big opportunity. Whether they'll like seize it or not, I don't know. But, yeah.
So last question before I turn over to the audience. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Are you on to the next project, or are you going to be kind of growing Stellar for a while?
It's hard to say. I mean, we're definitely not done. I don't want to abandon Stellar until it's done. And I think, things are going really, really well right now. The team is awesome that we've built, and I'm super excited about this mobile wallet thing that's going to come out in the 1st of January. You know, I don't know if the world is surprises you, but
I'll have to get you as a speaker at CES. I run the blockchain event there. Good timing.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I'm until it's either done or dead, I won't be gone. So.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, we got time for 2 or 3 questions. Who wants to ask John McCaleb a question? Straight up front.
So, you folks have done tremendously well with airdrops in terms of creating network effects. Now there's some regulatory uncertainty as well as some potential clear paths which have been created by the Republic to do these token airdrops to get massive user adoption and build communities. What other strategies would you recommend a startup in this space to be able to create a very strong community, create network effects, create brand happiness?
So I mean, I think this is one of the problems of crypto in general, is like, how do you create this network effect? Because I really don't think any of them have really done it yet, because there's, especially for payments, because for payments you need both sides of it, and this is why things aren't actually used yet. So I don't really have an answer, because we would have done it. But it's, you know, I think this is one reason why crypto has like, everyone was really into it, but it's not being used in the world, because we don't have a big enough network between like people that are holding it, people that are accepting it, and how do you get that flywheel started? I think it's a hard problem. So.
Okay, and next question.
Come on.
Oh, all the way back.
Hey Jed, Steve Beauregard, GoCoin.
Curious. There was you did, I guess, the equivalent of an airdrop. I know on my Kraken account, suddenly I had these Stella that showed up. How did that work out for you guys? Did you guys get the traction that you had hoped with that strategy?
That was probably the Bitcoin airdrop. That was, I would describe that as a success. I mean, it wasn't like a total home run, but we definitely increased interest and awareness of Stellar, and you know, there was definitely more people that knew about it, and were like building on it after that. So.
Okay, one more question. Okay.
Hi, Dwayne Jacobson with Borsai. So we are a Stellar fork, and we're building a platform on it. How would a company like Borsai get more involved with you directly and Stellar as we build out our platform?
I mean, I think we have a developer mailing list, which would be good to sign up on. Just if there's like protocol changes that are relevant to both sides of the, then you should discuss them there. And obviously, like, follow the GitHub, and hopefully some of the stuff you can do will be upstream to us as well. So I think there's a lot of like technical coordination. All our developers are on Keybase, so join Keybase and you can talk to us in there. I think that's probably the best way to stay coordinated. So.
Any particular way to discuss the project we're working on and what we're doing?
I mean, you can talk to me afterward.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So I've got one last question. A number of you know, foundations and platforms that are trying to get folks to build on top of them have also gone and started separate funds. Neo, EOS is a few of them. Emergo for Cardano. Do you have one of those? Because I'm not aware of it. And are you thinking, even Ripple just set aside Ripple and said, hey, we're going to go and help incubate companies? What are your thoughts on that? Is Stellar doing anything in that area? Are they looking to do anything in that area?
We don't have that to date. We've given like grants, like living grants to various companies, but never for operations. We're debating it internally now whether we should go that route and set something up like that. I don't think we would do it in the same way that these other funds are set up, but we might we might invest in the companies in the future.
You heard it here first. John McCaleb, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, where's Erica? Look up the schedule and.
One second, Michael.
Xavier in here? She was going to MC for today because Melissa's not here. I get wrapped up in the conversations, and I was like, okay, what's on next? So that's the Emcees are for. Okay, we got the. Walls. And that's supposed to be Emcee, but I guess I'll do it for this first one. Okay, so we're going to talk about wallets and payments. And got an esteemed panel here. Come on up and let everybody introduce themselves. Paul, this is you. Steve. And who's moderating this one?
Morning, everyone. I'm Nimrod from Simplex. As I'm guessing most of you are Americans, you're less aware of our existence because you probably make your purchases at Coinbase. But we provide credit card processing for pretty much any other vehicle where you can make purchases with your credit cards, adding off-ramps to credit cards and additional on-ramps and off-ramps. And today we're here with people whom I know for quite some time, all of you. So happy to have you all join this panel, and I'll let you introduce yourselves.
Hello, my name is Paul Puey. I'm CEO and co-founder of Edge, and we are a non-custodial mobile app exchange allowing you to buy, sell, and trade various cryptocurrencies from all around the world using dozens of different payment mechanisms, including credit card through our partner Simplex. And we've been around since about 2014, originally as a payment-focused app called Terpin, and now really focusing on exchange functionality. Our goal being we want to get the retail investor off the custodial solutions where they have to leave their money on an exchange in order to buy, sell, and trade, and really bring the fundamental value proposition of Bitcoin to the user where you can actually hold and control your own funds.
Hi everybody, I'm Steve Beauregard. I'm co-founder and chairman of GoCoin and founded the company back in 2013. I'm a big fan of the Edge wallet as well, so I want to give them a good plug. They've always done a great job, as well as Simplex, great services. I'm not as familiar with Robert's company, but anyway, we'll talk about that. So GoCoin is a merchant processor, so we allow merchants to accept coins in the forms of Bitcoin, Litecoin, and a handful of others. We accept Dash, EOS, Ethereum, and essentially we permit the merchant to take that as payment, and then we'll turn that, if you got cash for them, put that into their bank account. That's how they want it. And more we're trying to encourage them to use wallets and to take their payments out in digital currencies as opposed to going through the dirty old fiat system. So I'll stop there. I do a lot of other stuff, advising the industry, a lot of different companies, but happy to chat afterwards.
Robert Beadles, Christian husband, father, is Crypto Beadles on YouTube, number 5 on YouTube for crypto, and then we get a TV show. Built one of the largest service companies in California in my free time. They built a software development company that builds things for the United States Post Office. Got into crypto around 2011, built Monarch around 2017, some of the best and brightest in the space. And Monarch has a decentralized wallet. So anybody can be their own bank, you can send, store, buy, sell, receive, all that kind of stuff, have an exchange. It's essentially like a super app where it takes all the best services, all the best companies in crypto, and puts them in one application through one login. And then we created Monarch Pay, which works today for merchants, because 98% of businesses in the US are small business, and they deal with credit cards and chargebacks and high fees and all that kind of stuff. So we created a decentralized recurring payment mechanism that allows anybody to just create a plan in a matter of seconds, and then every single month or week or whatever you want, money will be taken from your account, put it in their account, or from their account to your account, completely decentralized, trustless, nobody in between, always less than 1%, no chargebacks. everything I just mentioned is available today. So before we get on the panel, I want you to hear guys here.
Thanks. So we're here to discuss wallets. So I think it's always a big question to me, like what makes something a wallet? Like how do you guys see a wallet? What's the key differentiators? Why there's so many of them? How does the user choose? Like, is it something based mostly on experience for people? Is it specific features? How would you define the key differentiators? Why should someone choose your wallet or a specific wallet? Who wants to start?
I'll let one of the wallet guys. I think the first question to ask is, what even is a wallet? The wallet, started off pre-crypto as just being this piece of leather that you put in your butt, and it held, money primarily. The old days, it held photos too. Remember the days in junior high when you put your photo of your girlfriend in there, and party photos? But the advent of cryptocurrency really bastardized what a wallet is. If you look at everything that people use to define a wallet, it's anything from a piece of paper, now it's called a wallet, ironically. Usually that's what you put in a wallet. Now a piece of paper can be called a wallet, a paper wallet. A USB stick is called a wallet. A piece of software that runs in a mobile device. And even to the extreme that in the cryptocurrency world we don't want to call a wallet. A bank account with dollars in it is now called a wallet. A piece of hardware where you put little, metal chips in with words on it is called a wallet. So I think the challenge is that word has been bastardized and it means everything. And so the landscape of saying, well, what wallet do you choose? You don't choose a wallet, you choose a specific use case. What is the exact use case that you're looking for? And in the crypto world, it will have a wallet in it. So it's more of, it is a subset of the use case. Pick the use case first, and some aspect of wallet functionality will exist there, whether it's a custodial bank account, whether it's a piece of hardware, a piece of paper, a transactional payment-based Venmo-like app, or obviously in our case, an exchange. Exchanges have wallets, but they aren't defined as one. But that's I think the starting point is what do you want to do with your money?
Yeah, but interestingly, wallets, you typically hold your ID, but I haven't seen any of the crypto wallets yet incorporate, that ID portion of it. So I agree that wallets have expanded into being a catch-all phrase, but why haven't wallets taken on that identity piece? Is there a reason? Is that technically challenging?
No. Actually, it's the process now with Monarch, so that we can. Yeah, it's actually in the process now with Monarch, so it's just one of the other features that we do. Again, when we say wallet with Monarch, it's not like just for cryptocurrencies. Like when you think wallet, like what's a wallet? Well, it's data management for digital assets. It can be a piece of paper, it can be hardware, it can be software, it can be anything like that. But with Monarch, we're not trying to be just a wallet. It's a wallet for all the best services in crypto, in blockchain, through one wallet. So the digital ID, all that stuff is coming as well. And it makes sense to have it there, right? To where the actual owner of the phone is in control of their money as well as your identity, all in one place.
Maybe the word or the title wallet is not really sufficient for what you think it should contain. Maybe that's one of the reasons there's so many of them, because everybody sees it a bit differently, thinks it should contain something slightly differently, and that's why they still call it a wallet. Again, it might be a piece of paper, it must be a whole functionality like an exchange or a bank even, but still. So how do you choose? How do you define? How do you kind of create a structure where you think it has all the functionality as a wallet?
So I think actually one of the biggest problems with wallets as a whole, and probably this is just a startup problem in general, is the trying to do too much problem. And one of the things that, in a way, we were kind of victim to that as well. We wanted to do a whole lot of different things instead of focusing on one. So I would say that how to choose is to look at the use case of what you want to do with your money, and then choose an app for that use case. So if you're looking for something that's focused around payments, I want to send and receive, I want the Venmo of cryptocurrency, then look for an application that actually is focused around that. And admittedly, I will even honestly say that that's not what we're focused on. Now, it's possible, but in order for you to make that a good experience, you have to compromise on other functionality. As a company focused around exchange functionality, it's going to compromise the payment capability. At the same time, an application that's focused around payments, send and receive, is going to be poor at being an exchange type of offering. An app or a product that's meant to be your vault, that's going to be that cold storage or that piece of paper, that piece of metal, is going to be poor at the other pieces of functionality. They're not going to be good exchanges, they're not going to be good payment applications. Ones that are focused on identity are not going to be good at the others. So you might actually need multiple applications if you want the best experience. And this we actually see in the landscape of apps as a whole, outside of cryptocurrency. If you look at, to pick up, for example, in many ways, Facebook. Facebook is trying to do a lot. There's a ton of functionality in their app, and because of that, they actually broke it up into several different apps. You want Messenger, it's a separate app. You want to manage your pages, it's a separate app. And you want to talk to you want to just post, that's another app. And I think that's something that you should look for in the right product if you want the best experience for what you want to do.
Yeah, one of the things we find in payments at GoCoin is that consistently people, when they bring in an invoice up, for example, they go through their shopping cart, they populate it, put, let's just say $100 with the information in there, and then it pops up an invoice with a QR code. And if you're on a computer, most people are a little confused at first, knowing like, what do I need to do? Well, you just put your camera up and you take a picture of the QR code. It's just really a clunky experience. So at some point we start to integrate this better and better. You can do it in an all mobile experience very, very seamlessly, but when you have it like cross-platform, like we're still using, there's still a lot of challenges. And I think that's one of the things that sort of slows adoption down is that little confusing piece of how exactly are you going to use it. One thing that we did realize is people that are very motivated, that really want that product, they'll figure it out. And they'll go to great lengths to figure out how to use crypto in the transactions if they're motivated.
Yeah, I just think crypto sucks right now. I think, just like I said Saturday, it's just awful. Trying to get people outside of this room into crypto, it's like banging your head against the wall. It's too complicated. Everybody just thinks that there's a scam or some kind of get-rich-quick scheme or something like that. They really don't understand the value because it currently doesn't offer any value to them. It doesn't offer anything that's better than what they're currently using. So we all love crypto. We all see the benefits of it. But trying to get somebody else to understand why they should be using Visa or MasterCard or something like that is difficult until our UX or UI or platforms get to where it's on par with centralized services with an ease of use. We're always just going to talk to you or our peers. So that's what we're doing at Monarch, is trying to make it as easy as sending a text message, as easy as just upping your credit card for payments, like what you're talking about, as well as I see that you're talking about breaking up my Facebook into different apps, which is cool, and I get that. But if you have like ePay and Alipay, that's like one super app. That's like what we're trying to do, is put the best of everything in one place. That way you don't need 40 apps.
Yeah, one of the other complicating factors is, everybody who's been in crypto a long time has those friends who you know from high school and when crypto got really hot, everyone's calling, what should I do, what should I buy? And we all have those close friends that we can't say no to. Well, I'm getting the call from all of those friends now, what do I do about my taxes? And that's always something I thought the wallet was going to solve. And somehow they would know, you would know what basis you had of the coin, when you used it, how you used it. It turns out that's just really super complicated. So, I'm one of the lucky ones that got to go through the whole revision of all my taxes. And I ended up using a service called CoinTracker, which is actually quite good. It definitely has its shortcomings, but what app doesn't? But that really helps to clarify a lot of the pieces that have been missing that sort of intimidate people. They say, oh wow, if I'm going to move coins around, I'm going to have gains. If I use it in a payment, then I'm going to have to claim the gain on that. So that app really does sort of bring together the experience.
So I'll give a tiny bit of advice. It doesn't really exactly have to do with wallets, but with respect to the kind of tax things. It's not tax advice, but this is what I'm being told by a lot of CPAs. There's one major thing that you could do with all of your transactions between wallets and exchanges that would greatly help them. Tag whenever you just transfer money from one account or wallet that you own to another account or wallet that you own. That's the most important thing you can do. Tag that. Whether it be in a spreadsheet, whether it be in the exchange, or not to be self-promoting, but in Edge you can tag transactions with metadata. Tag that as a transfer. So long as you know that, everything else the CPA can figure out, or software can figure out. Because for the most part, that means that you're turning it into something else. That is a different asset. Whether you bought something, whether you bought or sold in crypto, whether you bought a cup of coffee, that now becomes something possibly as a taxable event. Everything else transferring between one pocket to another is, technically speaking, a non-taxable event. So just doing that tagging is the most important thing. And after that, a smart CPA or some good software can handle that for you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The other thing is, by default, that software usually assumes that the transfer is actually a payment, that's the default within the software. And so you can even within that software go ahead and tag those as transfers. That's a great point. The other thing is knowing like the basis of the coins that you have and where you keep them. So if you have stuff locked up in long-term storage, as the IRS guidance has told us, you don't necessarily have to go back and pay taxes on those coins if you're using coins that you just bought recently for like little things here and there.
That's just one more reason why crypto sucks. One more thing to keep track of, to train people to do.
Well, if the IRS would actually treat it properly and say, you know, when you're using it as a foreign currency, then treat it as a forein currency, which is not taxable.
I just think in the app itself, you should track all this stuff for the people, so that it's not another barrier to entry, another thing they have to learn, another thing they have to do. The app just does it for them. That's what we're doing on it as well.
So we've touched taxation, for example, but what about other issues which are more geospecifics? I know you guys are focused on the US, but you probably know some of the wallets working in other geographies. Paul, I know Edge is working in multiple locations. Don't know about international. Okay, so what are the implications of being an international wallet? How do you handle, for example, taxation or different fiat currencies? How do you see it evolving?
Well, I think the different fiat currencies, the banking is still challenging, and I can't believe that I'm sitting here on stage after all of these years, 6 years later, still saying, wow, banking is still difficult, but it is. And it's going to continue to be for some time until we work out a lot of the issues that we talked about around the regulations and taxation. But I think that from the international perspective, if you have focus offshores, then you need to have the entities offshore too. That's one of the things that we always advise people when they're setting up their businesses, that you have to have people in those local locations that sort of have feet on the street and understand the rules of how to operate in those jurisdictions.
So we take admittedly a bit of a cop-out approach, I'll call it that, even though I think it's a solid approach to being geographically dispersed and being able to operate in many different countries, is that we're pure software. We don't hold any money, we don't hold any personal information for the user, and we are not even required to transact on the different blockchains that we support. Now, we are an exchange, though, so we do that through partnering with other companies that do a great job of handling the KYC requirements, the banking relationships, and any of the regional dependencies. And we've got different partners to cover different payment mechanisms in different parts of the world. One of which we just integrated and launched, which allows people in, is anyone here based out of Europe? All US. But just launched to allow people in Europe to buy and sell up to $5,000 worth of Bitcoin from their bank account with no KYC. And they worked on that for several years, fully compliant with the agreement of their bank. And that's fully integrated in Edge that people can use today. And so this is a testament to kind of playing the pure software game. And so for people that are building projects, if the project in crypto can operate as a software solution versus a financial services solution, I highly encourage you to do that. And focus, just like I said, focus as far as applications, focusing on what they're supposed to do. As a company, also focus on what you're strong at. If you're strong in strength is regulation, banking relationships, then go work in that space and then payments and conversion. If your focus and strength is in software, then keep that out of your plate and allow partners to do that, which effectively is what we do.
Yeah, it really comes down to whether you're a custodian or not, correct, of the funds.
True, yeah. Once you're a custodian, you're a financial services company. And to some degree, even if you somewhat facilitate that money goes through, you hold personal information, even if you're not a custodian, then you also can fall under a lot of regulations. So trying to keep yourself off of that significantly helps.
I'm going to steal Nimrod's moderator job for a minute and ask him a question. So how do you deal with that at Simplex? Because I know you deal with a lot of these same issues.
So we're a licensed financial institution here. Because of the way we provide the service, the business model itself, we're not advertising directly to the user. So it's kind of, I used to be a hacker, so basically we hack the regulatory system. Because of the way we provide the service, the fact that we're not approaching the users globally, when they approach us basically through our third party, whether it's Edge, Monarch, or anyone else, they are being dragged into our regulatory regime rather than the other way around. So basically, that's the way we're covered. And again, in Europe, we have all the banking relationships and processing relationships that we've been working on for 6 years, so it's working pretty well. You had something to say?
Sure, I can add to it. Paul had a lot of great points there. I mean, as a software company, when you're building something that empowers the people to be their own monarch or their own king or queen. They're the ones that are in charge of their personal funds. So we don't track any of their information. We don't have their email address. We're not holding your funds, any of that kind of stuff. So what we do is, like what Paul said, you focus on what you're good at. So we built an incredible backbone. And then we plug in other people's services to our application that are amazing at those types of services. So we're not trying to build everything ourselves. We let people that do great things Simplex. We let our customers use their services for credit cards, and so that way we don't have to deal with that. And then with Monarch Pay, everything is trustless. So that way it's just between the merchant and the actual customer themselves. The money isn't going to Monarch. It's just between the two people, and that's one of the ways that we try to limit our exposure to things is do what we're good at, like you said. And our audience is global as well. So 30% here in the U.S. and 70% abroad.
So I think that one of the biggest questions with this wallet is, Bitcoin be your own bank and everything, but there's always the stupid factor, like I've also some private keys as well. How do you tiptoe on this thin line between providing security for the funds and for the users, but not holding the keys, not holding not too much information, taking care of account takeovers? How do you tiptoe around that?
Yeah, so right now crypto sucks. So it does.
No, yeah, it's impossible.
I was building mobile apps back in 2001, 2002, and it sucked also. It really did. I mean, that's the time.
Technology just kind of sucks.
Yeah, what it does. But look at it now. I mean, you have apps like Uber. You couldn't dream of that back in 2000, early 2000s, and having something like Uber. I mean, we were building very basic stuff to give like approval processes to be pushed to mobile devices so people within a company could do it, and that sucked because the networks would freeze up. The battery life on the device would go to nothing. The processing would the thing would just hang up in the middle of transactions. So that's where we are in crypto right now. We're at the same stage. In 5-10 years, we're going to see all of these problems slowly get solved. It'll still suck for a while, but it's going to get increasingly better.
Yeah, and trying to educate people, trying to train people is not the way to do it. Because they've already got it. They're too busy. They already have enough stuff on the plate. They don't want to have all this stuff too. They just want the value of it. They want the ease, the simplicity of use, and how it makes their life better for whatever they're using now.
I can't be honest, I can't keep up with all the wallets. I mean, I have a bunch of, some of them are staking, some are doing various things, and I'm like, oh, I didn't make that patch, and this thing stopped staking, this broke, and so I've got to the point that I'm kind of like, you know what, some of them I'd rather just put a custodian and let them deal with it.
Yeah, I think we kind of solved that problem with Monarch in our next update, you guys will see it, so that way people will be able, they'll have total control of their keys at any time. We never did, we don't have access to them anymore.
So I think I actually fundamentally totally agree. I know we were trying to disagree, but I fundamentally agree with education is not the solution. That's really important, especially with the complexity of a new technology. Like educating people on the internet didn't create mass adoption of the internet. It was actually hiding the complexity. Is make it where the complexity of an IP address just disappeared. In the sense that hiding the complexity of a public address or a private key, making that invisible, is the solution to getting people to adopt it without that intimidating feeling. And so there have been multiple projects that at least try to hide the public address. And that's one piece of the puzzle, although admittedly, it hasn't been as critical as the private key. That admittedly is what we've been founded on, is hiding the private key. And while being a non-custodial solution, you never have to see the private key in Edge, but you still 100% control it. And we make it just feel like you're creating an account. And at one touch of a button, we're also two-factor. And to address what you had mentioned, Nimrod, after you receive a few dollars, you're also reminded to set up password recovery. In the world of encrypted data, password recovery by and large doesn't exist, but it does in Edge. And it's also a platform that other developers use for secure keys in their own decentralized apps. And I'm seeing actually other attempts at secure private keys that we haven't developed that are in other apps and other platforms that I'm actually very excited about. Things like biometric, not just on your phone, but biometric to secure things on remote systems. So I don't think this is just the part I disagree with is not that it just sucks, like crypto doesn't just suck. It's the challenge that actually is getting slowly solved. And I welcome that challenge, because if there isn't a challenge, then there's nothing interesting to do. So we don't just take the the stance that, well, there's a private key, it sucks, go deal with it, it's your fault if you lose it or don't back it up. Instead, let's actually be forgiving, and I think all platforms, all apps, whatever you're building, factor the user into it as opposed to just the protocol. And if you're even building a protocol, factor the user experience at it, because I think one of the fundamental issues we've had is protocol developers work down here, and they think that user experience will just be fixed by the people that make the pretty buttons. But really, the user experience starts at that low level, everything from what an address looks like and different formats of it, all the way up to the actual pretty buttons.
So I think we're touching quite a lot of what should have been the last question. My last question to the panel: how do you see the evolution of wallets? How do they support more advanced scenarios? How do you integrate stable coins into them for, with all their variety? How do you see everything going forward? Everybody get 1 minute because we have 1 minute. So 1 minute.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing in Monarch. We're trying to create one app that allows you to access all the services from one login. So this way you don't have to learn all these new systems, because crypto does currently suck. The user experience is freaking horrible. Even people that are in crypto, they don't really understand it. So we're trying to get it up to where it's better than what they're using in a centralized manner. So if they're used to using Facebook, how do you get somebody to leave Facebook and create a better Facebook, something that offers more value, something that has more services, more features, something that improves the user's life? And so with Monarch, that's what we do, is we bring all the best of everything in one place, so you have access to it in an easy manner, whether it's for taxes, for login, or KYC, or identity, or buying or selling, or whatever it is. Then they're able to do it through one app, and then through Monarch Pay for merchants, it's a complete solution, because now it takes away chargebacks, it drops the fees to 1%, and a stable token, stable coins, so you get rid of all the volatility with that simple experience that people are used to. Because at the end of the day, it's got to work better than a centralized solution and have real value. It can't suck.
Well, I kind of disagree. I think trying to do too much is really difficult. I mean, at GoCoin, we do one thing really, really well. We serve merchants, and we give them really simple tools to plug into the shopping carts so they can process payments.
We're only doing one thing.
Right. That's
else does everything else.
Yeah, I understand, but I have 50 or 60 apps on my phone, and I use 10 of them on a daily basis, and I use the other ones occasionally. I get pissed off when I come back to one, like, I have to log in again. I don't even remember what my login was for that one, but putting that aside, I just think that
we just solved that problem for you.
Okay, good. So, anyway, I think you're cutting into my time, man.
Oh, you're just selling Monarch, baby. You don't even know.
So, but I've always envisioned that the wallets would handle things like, from NFTs, the non-fungible tokens. Like we're seeing a lot of these assets that are like digitally unique. I would think that they should start handling those kinds of things as well as cryptocurrencies. And there should be just sort of a whole plethora of things that they do. But trying to be all things to all people usually doesn't go well. Paul?
So I'll try to tie those two things together in the sense that, yes, I do firmly believe with Steve that you will have many different apps. Especially in the NFT world. In the NFT world, an app should highlight that non-fungible token, whether it's a crypto key or a ticket to a concert. It's hard to put that highlight of that specific token into an app that just allows you to buy, sell, and trade and do bank accounts and whatnot. And so, if you're going to buy, sell, and trade, that would be an exchange app. And if you're going to spend and use it for payments, that's going to be another application. The one thing that kind of ties it all together, though, is key management. Whether you manage the key yourself and you put that private key into the different apps for the different purposes, or you have a key manager that does it for you. In some ways, like a MetaMask does this on the browser, but not mobile. And Edge does this through an SDK, where an SDK can go into multiple different apps and manage your keys with a login across all of them. But even if it doesn't incorporate us, fundamentally think that you simply will use different applications. Keys are effectively your single sign-on across all of them. Whether it be a difficult way of doing it, or a simple way of doing it, that will be what ties it all together.
All right, that's a wrap. Thank you very much, guys. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Because it would be so much easier. I'm happy to tweet too, but I never know anything.
I just look them up as I go.
Yeah, but I looked at the next panel. I couldn't find how to, you know. It wouldn't be too much work to have one of the guys I noticed the whole speaker list is not filled out. They're hardly
Maybe next time when they register, they're going to put their code in.
right. Or actually, just don't fill it. Like, fill it has access. Everything. Research or pop it in, and it, you know.
Probably buy most of them for the rest of the day. Just put them in a list.
Well, I'll just follow. I'll just retweet what you do that way.
Is less more siren outside in the home? Have you seen ground? I'm very excited to announce our next panel. It is the future of digital currency funds. And as you know, there's been a lot of talk about, is this ever going to go mainstream? When are they going to pass EFTs? I think we're going to hear all about that right now, and led by our fabulous moderator, Dr. M. You're a terrible person. Look at you being late. I'm going to thank you later. And with that, here we go.
Thank you so much. And since we have one more seat, you can join us. I think we need a rebel on the panel anyway.
I'm not the moderator.
No, I'm the moderator. Don't worry. Don't worry. I will try to moderate you. You can be wild. You know, I mean, you're wild. That's fine. Yes, so future of digital currency funds. What can that be? I mean, isn't it like I'm gonna get my ICO and raise funds and who cares about anything else? Maybe you're thinking a different way, so the future presents something else. So what are digital currency funds?
You want to jump in? I guess I should jump in and maybe just talk about my background for a minute since I got here late and I apologize.
And you can grab the mic from here after if you have your
I'm actually just a music business guy who in 2013 became obsessed with cryptocurrency and was convinced that Bitcoin at 200 was incredibly expensive. And I sought out to find the next Bitcoin. So in 2013, I became an advisor for Ripple. And then I invested in the Ethereum pre-sale and kind of lots of ICOs after that. So as I kind of started building my resume, building my investments, I partnered with a guy who's supposed to be sitting here today, David Seymour. And we launched a company called Way Financial. And Dave had come from traditional venture and managed about $500 million worth of funds overseas. I'm going to try to do this quick story, but it gives you context. And he was full in on crypto, and so was I. So we built a company which actually has an active fund. And out of that active fund, we've invested in about 40 companies, and it's completely blockchain and crypto. We additionally, we have 3 units, and we also create structured products. So we built the company, and the first product we launched, we probably have the most structured products in the marketplace right now, which are fund structures.
Yeah, I understand. We can talk about that, but I have a question, which is the...
Okay, so anyway, we have index funds and Bitcoin income growth products and things like that.
Okay. I still don't have an answer to my question. Can you take that? What is a digital currency fund? Maybe...
The thing about investing in cryptocurrency funds or using cryptocurrency funds to fund businesses is the risk in the ICO. When we saw in 2017 the ICO wave starting and we stand the investors coming in and we invest also with cryptocurrencies in fiat projects. That was the mistake. The mistake was in that thing that an exchange from cryptocurrency to fiat is producing a loss because the cryptocurrency market was going up and is still going up. It doesn't matter if you're Ripples or something like that, but a limited system on a huge market, even if the crypto investors only 3% at the moment, creates a value which is higher than the output at the moment. So what we not have seen in the investment was the tracking of the output and keeping up with the output on a higher level of regulation. So we let them do. And I put easy terms, you build a house. The bank is lending you money. Each step of the house, from the cellar to the first block, is a controlled flowing of money. And that's what's happening in cryptocurrencies. Everyone was saying, oh, now I can find a right system. But that leads into investors believing into the system only by an idea. They funded ideas instead of value. And I think this is the most challenge today, to filter out whether this investment is based on value or only an idea.
Right, and this is taking me to my next question, which is, how are we going to invest? I mean, it's really a plethora. I don't know if you were with us on Saturday, but we had so many startups. I was overwhelmed, I was thrilled, I was angry, I felt everything in who to invest. So how are you choosing your projects?
So I'm Ken Lin. I'm Chief Technology Officer at Cosimo Venture Partners. We're a VC fund. And we're very invested in blockchain tech in general. One way people can choose is by simply doing security tokens, so completely compliant with the securities laws. But we have a token called the Cosimo X token. And it's a tokenized VC fund specifically on blockchain and other kinds of deep tech. So I think with innovation sort of massively outstripping the ability of people to keep up and to really do their due diligence, one method is you trust in some professionals who have a track record to do that kind of analysis and have an investment thesis that they're pursuing, and you can invest in that just like you would any other security, except with less friction, because once you've tokenized it, it's easier, it's more liquid, and that's one route to go that is completely compliant. Now with a security token, of course, in that compliance, you do have a heavier burden to do all that stuff. And so the alternative is investing in digital currencies that aren't securities, but they also have some interesting effects where you get some hedging of risk. So we have another part of our ecosystem, we call it NDAO, which is short for an endowment of assets that underlie it, that helps support its monetary policy and keep it stable. This is another way to go that's more focused on the monetary policy aspects, but still has a fund, if you will, of investments that help support it. So that's another route to go.
Thank you. Yes, I understand that you answered the question how to invest, but still maybe in what to invest, any of you?
With our active fund, we see an incredible amount of deal flow. We're not a trading fund, we're an early stage investor, and for us it really still comes down to traditional concepts of investing. It's diligence, it's team, it's valuation. We're incredibly valuation sensitive. Our fund has performed well, and we've been able to make it through this bear market because we were valuation sensitive and did invest in two guys at a $200 million valuation in a garage.
The question with that is that I see a different point of view. I'm coming from a different point of view. If you talk about securities, for example, I invest in small business units, and I use the security as an exchange for a share. So that my token has a value, and then I can't exchange it on cryptocurrency exchanges because the value is based on the company, right? That's the security part of that. And the misconception in security parts is, and that's my point of view, if you call gold, for example, a security, then only in the belief. If you say diamonds in security, it's the same like Bitcoin. It's technical limitations.
Well, I'll take a different approach to all you guys because I'm an agency broker.
Excellent.
An agency broker.
We
So
start debating.
yeah, I go a little different. My view is we offer 30 different currencies to customers, and I think the next thing that we'll start seeing is I don't think we'll ever see ETF for the next couple of years. So scratch that. But I think you'll start seeing what you mentioned, some structured products, managed fund stuff that we'll deliver to retail customers as a basket of different currencies, maybe the top 10, maybe some of the 30, and then being able to deliver that to customers, rebalance, do all the things that you think of in a traditional financial services firm. I think that's where the next step of adoption for retail customers is that area first. They don't know where to go. Forget the ICOs for a second, but in top 20 different currencies, they just don't know where to go, and they need help.
I mean, that's one of the things we did. We did an ATM hack, basically. We wanted people to be able to buy in the market, and that's why we created the index minus the stable coins. The other thing about it is it's only for accredited right now, and I think our first product costs like $500,000 to roll out the door just for the legal due diligence for it. But as we launch these products and the world becomes more mature and retail opens up, like you're pointing out, we're going to be in a position to be able to participate to retail. So we have the same view as you do.
Yeah, I'd love to have your product on our platform if we can get that. Because I think overall, that's the next way. We have to get people into the ecosystem, and we got to give them some reasons and ideas why.
I think if you come from a standpoint of mine and to traders, you never need a stable coin to come into the business to hedge a fund or something like that, because stable coins is the same thing we have done with the gold standard. And I believe at the moment, the rules of thing and the regulators go the same way, making the same mistakes from the old world in regulating and setting up ETFs and trading funds as we had before. Where's the advantage? I see the advantage in that. And the advantage is the shortcut, in my eyes.
Yes, thank you. Wonderful. I'm learning a lot. So, when I'm thinking blockchain and funding blockchain projects, startups, and so on and so forth, and creating funds for that, I'm thinking changing the world for good. Do you have any examples of projects, or do you ever, sorry, it's a different type of question, please give me a yes or no, or whatever you want, but do you care at all about changing the world for the better when you invest, or do you care about making money, or can we reconcile all of the above?
I have a different take on what blockchain is really about than most. I see the blockchain and crypto as a sign of almost a rebellion, a dissatisfaction with the non-digital institutions we have, governments, the monetary system, the court system, all the institutions out there. They're failing us in a lot of ways, and that's a very long discussion, but I'm sure everybody in this room has some dissatisfaction with that. And the nature of blockchain, right, it's really about having a level playing field where we all get to have kind of a vote in confirming that we have a common set of rules that we're operating under with level playing field that encourages good faith, constructive behavior amongst all of us to create value together, right? That's what it's about. And you can apply this blockchain notion of an institution to any kind of institution. Governance, dispute resolution, monetary systems, and even regulation itself. And I think right now we're in the phase where we're doing this to improve the institutions we're dissatisfied with in the first world. But once you have that, once you have all these institutions built out and they've proven themselves for ecosystems with high stakes, high value situations, well, now you've got turnkey institutions that you could simply plant in places that have no institutions or have even more broken institutions than we've got. And the institutions that work, that's really the heart of value and wealth creation, right? We can't build a company together in a country that's in the middle of a civil war and nobody can trust one another and there's no rule of law because everybody's just, as soon as you build up some value, somebody comes along and takes it from you. You have to have property rights that are protected and so on. And I look at it as this is the first stage of proving that blockchain can build these institutions, and they'll slowly make their way into countries after they've proven themselves.
I think he's right in a way, but the thing why we can't manage that, and that's why you can't change that at the moment, is the lack of knowledge. We're talking about high hopes in blockchain technology because the marketing was telling us what Bitcoin and blockchain can do, okay? At the moment, at the level, we have a consulting firm called Satoshi School. We train people, and we are able to set up a medium enterprise system and switch on the blockchain system and getting, for example, other items they use today to manage their fundings and everything in there. So this is real knowledge, and as long as we have high hopes and we do not know exactly how it works and no one is willing to get the knowledge about, we're talking in 5 months again the same situation. We have the ideas, we have the money behind, we want to invest in this field. He, for example, he's the guy who comes in with different ledger technology and everything, but no one knows at the moment how to connect them, that we can do, but no one wants to have the knowledge. And this is going in the circulation, and then the spirit is going up. We have to talk more about the technology.
Yes, no, I completely agree because we need to be inclusive. Otherwise, the institutions which are perfecting through blockchain are going to still reap the rewards at the expense of those who do not have the knowledge and maybe no opportunity to ever get it. So I definitely salute you are going to go there. Any other?
Look, banking the unbanked, has always been an early tenant of, lots of these companies. Cardano is looking to Africa right now. You have companies like Mesh that are trying to build mesh connectivity through emerging markets. You have the remittance deal that happened with CoinsPH out of the Philippines, because this is the only way that people can actually have access to funds. So I think, if you take a look at the early days in the emergence of a lot of these companies, it was all about banking the unbanked and impact investing.
I have one question for you. Did you ever ask yourself why no one was...
For them or for me?
No, for all of us. So ask yourself, will SAP allow the blockchain to substitute SAP itself? Because with blockchain technology today, I can make SAP obsolete completely. And SAP is near 98% of all
No, it's not only about SAP, we're talking about disruption. Of course, I'm going to have a keynote about that for the energy industry later on. I agree. So what is actually your question? That blockchain, or actually it's a statement that blockchain enables disruption?
When we go for enterprises and say, okay, we have blockchain here, SAP is in there. SAP hardly would not go the way, okay, I let your company go on blockchain. Because all the benefits of SAP, we can recode in blockchain easily with smart contracts. So SAP is obsolete. And that's the main point. If you want to make breakthrough, think about electric and oil companies. There's always a fight. See what Tesla is going through, right? And this is the changing moment. We have the technology. Easy can consult, you can fund all the technology. But if the big company SAP puts a finger on and says to their own enterprise system, okay, if you want to change, do it, but we do not tell them what we have done before. We have a big problem. Think about a company like Shell.
Did you ask your original question, blockchain for good or blockchain for profit? Well,
or both. Can you have both?
My approach is you really can't do good unless you need to get to profit, because all the companies that have raised money, especially as equity investors, the end game for equity investors is to gear towards a profit or an exit. And to do that, that's how you do more good. I mean, you can start off with a great concept, I'm going to bring good across the world, but you eventually run out of money. So you do need to have some piece of that has profit making, so that you can keep reinvesting back in to do that.
But I also think there's a challenge there, and you have to really think how to make that work. So if you have any solutions, recipes here, I will be very happy to listen.
You're the VC guys.
Yes.
One thing we're seeing a lot is there's a lot of interest in helping the third world rise, and they have a lot of great natural resources, right? That can be mined for energy and so on. What tends to happen is powerful forces kind of come in, disrupt the country, come in and kind of loot it and then take it out, and the people never really end up benefiting from that. But there's been a lot of talk behind the scenes of how can we use blockchain to fix this. How can we make it so that the people in a country like that, if they're part of the ruling class of that country, they're not simply pocketing some bribes from people coming from the outside and exploiting those resources and leaving, and the people don't benefit. Well, if you've got blockchain institutions protecting that country and protecting those resources, if you tokenize the resources that have yet to be mined or extracted, and the people themselves get some of those tokens to start with, and the people that are in charge of allowing access for that to be mined, they don't get paid until those resources do get extracted, are given to the right people on the outside, because they're of course wondering, okay, if I paid for a deal to do this, will my rights to that get extracted, be protected, or will they just run off with the money and they'll never get extracted? You want skin in the game for everybody. Right? And I think blockchain can be about giving people skin in the game in advance and making sure everybody's incentives are aligned to do that, and make sure that the money that can be extracted from these natural resources go to developing countries and seeing those institutions build up, and then having other types of wealth creation happen amongst the populace.
I think that's a wonderful and very wise example. It's not the rebels, not the incumbents. No, we can bring it together and create wealth for everyone. I personally salute them. Probably your will not.
And this means what you said in my eyes, that we have to focus with all the projects we have in there. We have thousands of projects there. We have to work on interoperability. That's the main challenge we have today. We face a lot of projects in agriculture, in healthcare, whatever, all over the world. Thousands of people working on that. Yeah, but there is no interoperability. So if we want to make blockchain as a success, we have to work in a way. Give an example. You have a monetary system and you use, for example, I would say you use Ripple as a payment system. Okay, I can easily create an API which, given on a Bitcoin blockchain, a receipt that shows not the amount you have transferred, but a receipt and a proof of trust, which you can't deny. That's for me really interoperability. Then we come to the situation that we talk about decentralized financial, keeping out the central factum of Ethereum, EOS, and everything. And let's go for interoperability because now we have all the clusters all over the world. Now we must only connect them, and then it doesn't matter which system is working for which privacy blockchain or not. At the end of the day, we have a ledger which is working together and interoperability, and it's the same outputs in different ways on all this kind of stuff. And then we can talk about that we have unification, and I think this is the right way to do.
Yeah, if it's the right way to do, I don't know. So, okay, so my last question, because I would like to take from the audience as well, and again, now 1 minute every answer, or less. What is the greatest challenges that you are facing today? One challenge, because otherwise we need more than 1 minute.
I think for our company, it's a blessing and curse. It's regulatory. The regulatory hurdles that we have, we need them to validate the company. So we need to go through the hurdles, but it's incredibly challenging, especially when you're looking at global products and global regulatory challenges.
Probably everybody has the same, but I don't know.
For me, from my standpoint of the school, and when we work with governments and everything, it's the education level. So there's a lot of misunderstanding out there, also from the technology, about the philosophy, and most people talking about blockchain even didn't know what an enterprise system is for real, right? So if we can guess that education lack of knowledge, and we can bridge it, I think that regulators going what you said in a better way to your company and can more understand what you are doing without having all this regulation in the 45.
I think a perfect example is the Libra hearings, and I actually watched those boring hearings.
You don't want to pronounce the word.
And I've met some of the people representing, and they don't know shit about blockchain. And it's sad that an aide gives them talking points, and they're kind of controlling the future, regardless of whether his approach was right or not. And I think that's a fundamental problem.
That's a very good example and relevant for the education need and challenge.
Yeah, from our company perspective, trailing the education is we're a retail-based broker, is teaching the general public as to why blockchain and cryptocurrencies matter. There's a research report I've seen recently that said there's only 15 million people in the U.S. that have cryptocurrency, and there's something like 70 million brokerage accounts. So we have a big gap to get people interested and therefore investing into cryptocurrency. And once they do, and once they start learning more, that's how we'll actually make the ecosystem work.
4% here, 30% in Korea.
The West is definitely way behind Asia in a lot of this, and you can kind of look at the fact that we had the best developed institutions in the West to begin with, and if blockchain is a new form of experimentation, innovation institutions, you're going to see that more rapidly adopted in places that are dying to have more of that more than us, right? So similarly, like with telecommunications, right? So the mobile phone networks got built out in places without as strong of a network of landlines. They leapfrogged us, right? I think the same thing's happening with blockchain now, and we've got to catch up. We had this head start in institutions for a long time, but we're behind now.
Yes, great. Any questions from the audience, please? about the future of digital currency funds? If you have any more comments, we have one more meeting. Anyone for the last word?
If nobody have question, I have question.
Yes.
Speak about digital
Let's wait for the mic because it's video.
Which assets on cryptocurrencies we have not correlated to Bitcoin? Because as I saw, we have only stablecoins which correlated to usually USD dollar, or other cryptocurrency which is highly correlated to Bitcoin. Do we need currencies that are not correlated, or it's okay and let's play this game this way?
I'll take that because that's exactly what we've tried to build. You know, people love Bitcoin for lots of reasons. I was at Bitcoin early, still hold a bit, but you know, as far as Bitcoin being a long-term store of value, it has a lot to be desired, right? The big dreams of Bitcoin maximalists, that'll be the digital gold, that'll be held by central banks. That's the long-term store of value market. It's the biggest market. It's bigger than all the other crypto markets put together, right? Very large. But you can't have something that's volatile. You can't have something where people are worried that, you know, they'll have a hacker take it away from them. All these kinds of problems, they have to be solved. They need to have better, more explicit governance. So we created this digital currency called NDAO, and we put a lot of thought into monetary policy so that the idea can be that it can appreciate in value, it can provide an interest rate-like function, we call it the EAI, so that even when its appreciation is flat, there is a continual benefit to owning it, but the monetary policy keeps it stable. And thus far, it's trading on Bitmart in Hong Kong, and it's completely uncorrelated with Bitcoin. Sometimes Bitcoin goes down and DAO goes up. It's not a stable coin. It's not quite an unstabilized coin, if you will, like Bitcoin. We call it a buoyant coin, so because it's got incentives to mitigate downside volatility in particular.
At least I would say I see that different coins will disappear because there's a technology called Liquid and it's upcoming in all the technical stuff that we tokenize everything in a correlation to the Bitcoin price, not that the Bitcoin itself. If we have a tokenized community, there are obsolete for different coins because now we have 6,500 coins which have lack of utility, and that's the challenge for the coins. And I think the tokenization is going on in a way that this is the real connector. Bitcoin is only, I would say, the value measurable. When we say we can't do that, we see the dollar as the measure of the world, right? And we have all around it.
Thank you. On that note, I think we are out of time. But thank you, all the panelists. I learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone else. And of course, you are available, yeah, if they want to approach. Thank you.
So do you understand how you're going to deploy your money into digital assets now? Yes? Okay. Question for the audience. How many of you have taken a photo of like the most awesome people that you've met? You've met awesome. How many of you have met awesome people since you've been here? How many of you have taken photos of that? How many of you have posted those photos to Twitter? Okay, please, this whole group over here. Please post your photos to Twitter using hashtag CoinAgenda and hashtag Vegas Blockchain Week. We want to see how amazing your time here has been. Our next panel, I am looking for our next panel, and I have not seen them. Does anybody know where Elise is? Elise Sam?
Oh, she broke her foot yesterday. We're not sure what she's going to be here.
Okay. So then I am going to make an executive decision and say 10-minute break while I figure this out, get some coffee, go to the restroom, check your email, and be back in 10 minutes.
I wasn't with her.
I did not break her foot, I swear. She was fully mobile when I saw her last.
I'm here.
You're here?
Yes.
Okay. Jennifer Campbell. Awesome. Are you the only one here?
I don't know. I just
Okay. Awesome. If you want to just hang right there, I'm going to try and find him. Okay.
Were you single?
Yeah, you don't understand things. No. But you have girlfriends. What happened?
Panels of the day. Oh my God, I'm so excited because social impact is really big deal for me. I wish more people were in this room though. But we are videotaping and I believe we're live streaming, so it should be good. So Mark is going to be moderating this panel. I will let him introduce everyone, but this is on investing in social impact projects. Go for it.
Hello everybody. My name is Mark Hamadi, and I believe in social impact. I believe in investing, and I'll give you 2 minutes on my background, and then I'll tell everybody. We'll introduce everybody and kind of go from there. So I'm Lebanese. Came to this country in '85. I was in the Marines. That's how I got my citizenship. So I believe in the U.S. and I believe in kind of what they've done and so forth. And I'm a stage 4 cancer survivor. I had cancer twice, stage 4, stage 2. I had 7 surgeries. I was in a wheelchair for 3 years, hurt my back. I had gained about 254 pounds. I was 393. So I understand health, I understand depression, I understand all that. And when I think of investing in social impact, I'm an operator. I've turned around companies, I've turned around bankrupt companies. So to me, it's about creating jobs. It's about really enjoying life. Otherwise, excuse my friends, it's eat, shit, and die, right? So that's what's kind of important. When I look at investing, I look at team. It's about the team, bringing the team together. And even if they're brilliant, they still have to be able to work well with each other. So it's building the foundation. So my whole philosophy, just simply, people, planet, profitable enterprise, and women entrepreneurs. Why do I believe in women so much? Because my parents gave me up, and my grandmother raised me. And I felt my grandmother was amazing, and she was a brilliant teacher and made a lot, but she always taught this high when she was really this high. So I always tell men, don't tell me you're King Kong unless you're really King Kong. And so with women, when I listen to them and I listen to their pitch, I'm always like, is their pitch really, are they really this? And most of the time they're really this, but they talk at that. And at the end of the day, it's about production and getting it done. So now as we go through each person, I'm going to let them tell you their name and kind of what they do, and then we'll get into it and make sure they're comfortable and relaxed. The gentleman.
Hello, everybody. My name is Wes Williams. I'm an attorney licensed in California, and I've been in the blockchain and cryptocurrency space for about 3 years. Interesting story how I got into it. A friend of mine who was also an attorney worked for a Fortune 500 title insurance company, introduced me to Bitcoin, and to be honest with you, I didn't really think much of it until early 2017, because he gave me a small amount of Bitcoin, just Satoshis, but in any event, it increased the value, and I thought, gosh, let me look at this technology and see how it works under the hood. Started learning about it, became fascinated with it, took me down the road to Ethereum smart contracts, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to change the game of the title insurance industry, because that had been my industry for over 26 years now. I've been heavily involved in the land registry process, and not only here in the United States, but in other countries, working with companies and representing them in projects that they're doing overseas to start land registries in various other countries. And essentially, that's my story.
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you, Wes.
Hello. Hi. My name is Jennifer Kim. I'm the founder of Blockheads Development. We're located in Fresno, California. Our big project is we have an IoT device that will register water data on the blockchain. Our blockchain of choice is Icon Foundation, which is the largest blockchain out of South Korea. And we have a very close relationship with them. We're also, the panel that was on before us said it, just hit it on the nail, that in the United States, only 4% of the population have cryptocurrency or blockchain wallets. In Korea, that's 30%. So we're going to start developing in Korea. We also have a project that will take us to Cape Verde in Africa as well, because water is an issue in third world countries as well as modern countries. So that's what we're doing. We're part of a big ecosystem in Fresno. They just raised $27 million as Series A funding earlier this summer, so we're very proud to be part of that ecosystem. So we're in a really good position to push out our prototype and really make water transparent for the rest of the world.
Thank you, but before we go, hold on. I want to know who you really are, Jennifer. I could care less about the project right now and what it is. Who are you? Where did you go to college? Tell us a little bit about you and your ethos. It's great to have a great project, right? And it's great to have brilliant people. But Ted Bundy was also brilliant, right? So we really need to, you got to find out who the person really is behind it. That's very important.
Yes. I'm not Ted Bundy. I grew up in Southern California, and I left after graduating from UCLA. I lived in Chicago and New York City for 20 years, and I've done marketing. So about the time when Bitcoin hit 20,000, I kind of wondered, what is this? Fake money? Real money? What is this? And so I registered myself in BlockGeeks out of Toronto and studied blockchain technology. All of my employees studied blockchain technology. And my first, I guess, work in the blockchain world was working with one of Icon's companies, which is a K-pop DF. So I was able to work with them. We went to a large Korean festival in LA, 40,000 kids. They were just all there. So we kind of started evangelizing blockchain technology. So this was in 2018. And because of that first contact with the largest blockchain company out of South Korea, we kind of nurtured that relationship, and we're part of that network right now. So today is actually decentralization day for our network. So we've been very busy this weekend going to conferences, decentralizing. But it's a really good project to be a part of, and I'm very proud because I am Korean American, and I feel like myself and my project and my team, we're just going to push everything, all of our passion out a lot faster by being partners in Asia. But you know, we want to evangelize in the United States and in various conferences as well. So water is important to me. I have 2 little kids, so it's very important that I leave this world a cleaner, safer, healthier place than when I entered it.
Thank you, that's awesome.
So, my name is Arno St. Paul, and should I answer first the question about Coin?
Yes.
Okay, so probably the best answer could be I am love, and my background is in tech, but also in spirituality, and it's all about helping people to become a better version of themselves and grow faster and bigger and more beautiful still. So how I'm doing that is creating a project called Give Nation, which is a currency for children, for them to learn how to become philanthropists, and at the same time to learn how to have a sustainable financial literacy. So impacting the SDGs together, giving to charities, learning how to earn, to save, to invest, to spend, of course, and also to give, all that impacting the SDGs in a positive way.
Thank you. So my next question that I'm going to ask each panelist is twofold. What is investing and what is social impact to you? So investing to me is not just putting all your heart and passion into it, not just your money. So it's really putting in deep, digging a hole, and really, that's really investing. Like when you invest in your child, so I tell people, if you invest in your child, are you doing homework with them? Are you working with them? Are you cooking dinner for them? Not just giving money to the wife and the wife doing everything. That's not a father, right? So it's really going deep. And social impact is, okay, so you're building a company that's, let's say, clean water. Are you paying your employees well? Well, if you're not paying your employees well, if you're not treating people well, you're really not leaving a better social impact. So it's a combination. If you look at the planet, without the animals and without the people, I could care less about the planet. So take care of your animals, take care of the people. I have a beautiful 8-pound Maltese, and I tell people that's very important to me. And I have a 9-year-old. So the child and the Maltese and the wife, and it's all important. Take care of the people and that. So social impact is really leaving a better mark in the world, but also taking care of the animal and the people. If you're cheating on your wife, on your boyfriend or your girlfriend, you're a piece of shit. It's plain and simple. I'm not investing in somebody like that. If you're a cheater, you cheat on one thing, you're cheating on other things. So that's very, very important. So I look into the team and the people before the project. And if that's sustainable, you're building that foundation, you can do it forward. So I'll ask Wes now, what does investing mean to you, and what does social impact mean to you?
Okay. So from the perspective of like a philosophical perspective, like you had mentioned, investing is putting your time and effort and money with an expectation of a return on your investment. And I think, and that's why I love blockchain when I first learned about it, is because I saw this as more of an ecosystem where everybody who participates within that ecosystem gets a benefit from that. I mean, if you look at the Bitcoin blockchain, I mean, everybody contributes to that ecosystem to help it foster and grow. And they either earn or spend this token and transfer it amongst each other. But they're all trying to continue to maintain that ecosystem and not necessarily exploit it. I mean, there are vulnerabilities, obviously, but from a larger perspective, you're creating an ecosystem where there's a synergistic relationship amongst all the participants with the expectation that they will receive a benefit from it. And so I like that aspect of this technology, and that's what drew me to it. Obviously, there's people in this industry who want to exploit it, and which is why we have laws and regulations that prevent that. But as a whole, I think that there was an opportunity, at least from my perspective at the outset, to create an alternate financial system where more people can contribute and benefit from it, and you don't necessarily have to. You can still kind of live on the outskirts of it, still be able to be included within that ecosystem. It's more difficult now, at least here in the States, because of KYC, know your customer, and anti-money laundering requirements you have to meet. But still, I mean, individuals in other countries, the unbanked and underbanked, can still participate within that ecosystem, and they don't necessarily have to, show their identity and whatnot. But I think that was the altruistic goal of this technology, anyways, to include everybody within that. And I hope that answered the question. But
Thank you, Wes. Now, Jennifer, you please tell us what investing is to you, social impact, and how it relates to your project.
So this saying has been, we've been saying this a lot at Fresno, that intelligence is distributed equally by zip code, but opportunity is not. Therefore, Fresno has always been seen as an underdog city. So if we bring education, such as blockchain technology, we're going to start that in January, bring blockchain education, provide resources for businesses, local tech startups, provide them with offices, provide them with structure, with infrastructure, then those engineers will also have opportunities to have jobs. Then great tech will come out of those companies. So you need, as an investor, you need to invest in a cycle where there's a beginning and there's an end. And it's very important to me that we start bridging gaps so that we invest in underdogs. Because again, intelligence is distributed equally by zip code. There are diamonds everywhere, and as long as we provide them with education, training, with opportunities, we'll be profitable. Win-win situation. People will have opportunities, people will have a great lifestyle, but at the end of the day, everyone wins. So that's what investing in social impact means to me. With the water project, it's interesting because water is a big issue. So we have friends in Cape Verde who say grandma has to stand in line to get water every day from a fountain. And it's not a drinking fountain, it's a fountain in the middle of the square. In Fresno County, I think in 2015, just maybe an hour away from our city, they found uranium in the water. So there were these crazy signs up saying, you can drink the water, but it might cost you.
With Michael and a few others, we threw, again, like a blockchain week. We had 1 week of events. This will be similar. That won't just be covering blockchain. We'll probably also be covering things like qualified opportunity zones. We'll be probably talking about Act 20 and Act 22 and some of the tax advantages related to living in Puerto Rico and some of the other opportunities that exist there. But we're going to be doing a 1 week sort of Puerto Rico week, presenting you with kind of all of the awesome things that you're going to be learning about in Vegas this week, but in paradise. You know, at the end of winter, you know, around that time, if you live in a cold place, you know, you'll want to start thawing and preparing yourself for spring anyway. And so,
you're looking at about the first
calendars.
About the 1st and 5th for yours.
I think what the events are going to be is like the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. There's 2 different ones there, and I think that you're going to be like 7, 8.
7, 8, yeah.
Yeah, so I tell people plan on being in Puerto Rico like March 2nd to the 9th if you got time, or better yet, you know, stick around an extra week or 2, go check out the bioluminescent bays, go visit the only tropical rainforest in the United States, El Yunque, go visit the island of Vieques or the island of Culebra. Puerto Rico is the most underappreciated part of the United States. I mean, Michael, you were, you know, I believe I speak objectively when I talk about subjects. And I believe I'm still being objective when I talk about how beautiful Puerto Rico is. You know, Hawaii, yeah, there's a couple of places in the U.S. that are just breathtaking. Puerto Rico is one of those places. Low cost of living, it's beautiful. Basically no taxes if you're a crypto person and you file your paperwork correctly. Like if you're a crypto trader, I mean, from a tax perspective, if you're a U.S. citizen, you're almost a fool by not moving there because you don't get taxed on your capital gains. As a crypto trader, just accounting for your taxes is a major issue. Like this solves all of your major headaches, and you get to live in paradise. I mean, it's like it kind of it's a deal that's too good to be true on so many levels.
And with that, we'll thank Brock Pierce, who will be here the rest of the week in person, and we will all reconvene in March in Puerto Rico. Thank you, Brock.
Thank you, Michael. Sorry I'm not here in person, and look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow and the days to follow.
Happy to be here today and to talk about social entrepreneurship. Okay, who's hungry? I'm hungry and I want to have lunch with all of you. And if you go right outside these doors, you turn right, go down the hallway, then turn right again. We're in Gracia 1 and 2, and lunch is already served, so I will see you there.
Can you tell us how you bridge social impact with investing with your music? That's a for us.
But I'll be down with you guys. He's been around a while, right? Yeah. Yeah, he's in Puerto Rico.
I think we got the right.
When do you guys fly?
7:20.
Hey, what are you doing tonight?
Good.
You get to fly?
Yeah, tonight, yeah.
Snow? How much snow?
Man, it's nuts. Oh, really?
I love like that way. We're coming down to stay at the house.
Right. Send me your stuff.
Somebody's going to be absolutely
That door.
I can't even imagine. And how you doing? Good. Good. I think we're talking a week ago. Set by spirit and body. That's what it is.
I started learning about opera dolls
It's the big words. Most people don't even
Yeah.
So undo it like they have like
multiple computers for stocks.
All about the whole system. That's all. Hundreds of millions of dollars.
They're serving like free lunch.
Okay. Yeah, give me 1 second. Yeah, sure. Here's your bag. Yes. Yeah, anyway, we can show it up.
This is the 6th year that we've done CoinAgenda, and last year was the first year that
You have the back one.
Flash the pan, one and done, it just started and like disappeared. World CryptoCon kind of came out of nowhere. People, some of them didn't really have that much of a sort of experience in the space. Adam just kind of came in and just made relationships. And really proved themselves to be a lasting force. And so we're delighted to be partnering with them, co-locating at the Cosimo here, so that people don't have to run across town everywhere, and speaking at each other's events. And there's a poker tournament tomorrow. Are you going to be at the poker tournament too?
Assuming my flight's not delayed, yes, I'm on a early morning flight, hoping to be there.
Okay.
That's where we had our party last night. Those of you who made it.
Yeah.
Was it right there or was it right house? Next year we'll have the main place. Although we still did pretty well. And so this is, I think this might be a record for the number of speakers that we've had.
Did you get one of them?
Yeah. The other remaining times, we had a fireside chat. I got some. John McCaleb coming by earlier, of course.
It was just
I don't want to go up. I think a lot of people, so many things, don't realize all the first thing you did. I mean, you basically created these things. We came together, we did the first blockchain capital, and then really, if you corrected it, may never be broken for the largest token sale with Black One Beadles. So let me go chronologically here and start out with Bitcoin, I guess. I know that I told the story a few times. We started having these chats with people in Puerto Rico.
So that's fine.
We'll just kind of think about the last chance.
Email me.
Yeah, cool. All right, thank you.
Let me get your card. You're with Templum.
Temptum, yes.
Oh, I think it was
really cutting it close.
well, really close. I'm my glass.
Yeah, well, we have the Temple
offices about 1,000 feet apart in Santa Monica on an alley. And one day he just came into my office and was just really excited and said, I'm dropping everything and doing Bitcoin. And I was like, okay, I've kind of heard of Bitcoin. Is that like virtual worlds, or is that? I mean, I kind of thought it was like another second life when I heard about it. He explained it, and we got ready to launch GoCoin. Steve, of course, is in the audience here, and I think it was on one of the earlier panels. And went to the first Bitcoin conference in San Jose, and boy, that's really where it all started. And so, talk a little bit about those early days and sort of your kind of growing epiphany of how large the space can become and how you really changed your entire life to revolve around leveraging it and creating new opportunities for yourself, your companies, and mankind.
Well, yeah, I've been doing digital currencies in games since 1999. Our company back in the early 2000s was probably the largest or most pioneering of the businesses making markets in in-game currencies. Think games like EverQuest, Ultima Online, World of Warcraft, Second Life. we built up a supply chain of 400,000 people in the early and mid-2000s who were playing online games like World of Warcraft professionally to mine digital currencies that then we would make a market in. And so we were PayPal's largest merchant for years. We helped launch Alipay in China. We were even Google's largest advertiser for a brief moment. And so I became very familiar with cross-border payments, payment technologies, affiliate programs, digital currencies, and how just because something was intangible didn't make it any less valuable. And so that experience had me really well, I think, positioned to be able to excel, in this space. And I think it was Wired in, I think, December 2008. Called me basically the godfather of all things digital money, which is interesting because Bitcoin launched in January 2009. And so everyone that wanted to build a digital currency type of product, for the most part, was coming to me in the 2000s. And so, Bitcoin was on my radar very early on, but my, view of it, like other earlier attempts to do things similar, is I didn't fully appreciate the novelty that was Bitcoin and its solving major problems that previous attempts had failed at. So when people ask me what did I think of Bitcoin early on, I said, well, this or something like it is the future. I just don't know if the future is now or 25 years from now. And it wasn't until 2012 where a sufficient amount of critical mass, had formed, where I started to take the sector very seriously and started to make it, a meaningful focus of mine. And then it was in early 2013 when I made a decision to drop everything else I was doing to focus on this space full time. And it was in that process that we became very big miners. We had a big mining operation running, and when the first ASICs, which were Avalons, came out, we had 10% of the batch 1 Avalons. And so we were the largest Bitcoin miner in the world. With Steve Beauregard, who you mentioned, Steve, called me up and said, hey, I'm interested in, Bitcoin. Brock, you're like the digital currency guru. What do you think? I said, let's meet. And then we came up with the idea to start another payment processor. At the time, there was BitPay, and Coinbase was doing something. And that was when that company was in development that, I asked to bring you on because there was not a single PR company in the space. There was no one doing PR. So whoever you went to was going to be a novice, and you were going to have to spend a great deal of time, money, and energy to educate them on this new industry. And because you and I had been longtime friends, you worked with games, you were familiar with all the digital currency stuff I was doing, it made total sense to bring you to this business and to bring you in, because whoever I worked with was going to require, they weren't going to know much. And so, that worked out well for both of us. I'm glad to still be here. I'm really happy with the decision I made in going to you. Because most PR people I would have gone to at the time, would have taken my money and maybe done an okay job, maybe not. And they may or may not have taken advantage of the opportunity that was given to them. Where we know, with the benefit of hindsight, that I said, hey, this Bitcoin thing's going to be a big deal. You should get involved. It worked. You're still here in the industry, and this has become your primary focus, and you've been arguably one of the great contributors to this ecosystem's development. I mean, you've been on the forefront of promoting, from a PR perspective, many of the top projects. You helped found the angel sort of investor community with Big Angels. You've been involved with many organizations and in many capacities, wearing many hats, and been a pioneer. And so I'm really grateful to still be here working with you, Michael. You've been one of the great legends that's contributed greatly to the space. Thank you for all that you've done.
Well, thank you, Brock, and thank you for the kind words. And again, that was a great gift to basically say, come up to San Jose, let's launch this. And you actually delayed the launch a little bit because you wanted to go and work on regulatory, and said, just go in there, guarantee you'll be the only person there in the PR world. And I've always been sort of a serial entrepreneur, so I look at the PR with one hat, and I'll look with an investor hat, and I'll look with a hat to innovation. And I went in and I had the same feeling when I went to the first internet world in 1994, which is like, oh my God, this is like going to blow up. It's going to just change the world. And I met David Johnston there, and we started Bid Angels. I met all these other people who were small then, who then became giants in the industry. Eric Voorhees and Vinny Lingham, and they all went to the opening 30-person little lunch table that we had for Bid Angels, and I think we're still very early in the space. The fact that you can talk to people on the street, even sophisticated people, and say, "Oh, Bitcoin, is that still a thing? I thought that had died out or something." So let's move forward a little bit to let's see, Mastercoin, Ethereum. Realcoin happened just after Ethereum, I think, and just before sort of the main boom.
Yeah, so no, they were around the same time in terms of when Ethereum launched.
Right.
Ethereum, and Realcoin or Tether were happening about the same time. I mean, I'd have to go look on a calendar to see, was it a month after, did we launch? But I mean, they were, in terms of my memory, they were around the same time, and I don't remember the exact sequence.
About 2015, right?
No, 2014.
14, okay.
This was 2014, so, I had been one of the founding board members and main top 1, 2, 3, whatever investor in the Mastercoin token sale, which was the first ICO. That's where the ICO was invented. And Craig Sellers had been CTO of Mastercoin, not founder, but he came in shortly after launching. And so it really came out of conversations between Craig and I, and the idea that what Mastercoin did is it took the Bitcoin blockchain and said, let's use Bitcoin as kind of like the TCP/IP layer, and let's build assets on top of it. Like colored coins, if you were around at the time. The idea was that we can put other assets on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. And in the process of talking about, well, what could you put on top of Bitcoin? What are the other tokens that you would want to issue? It was very obvious to me that putting real-world assets on the blockchain, or the Bitcoin blockchain in this case, because that's all it was. It was a scaled blockchain that could provide any of the benefits that we talk about. I was like, the U.S. dollar is a very interesting one. Other ones would be gold and et cetera. But the U.S. dollar is something the industry needs. And I remember at the time talking to all of the other industry luminaries, and they were just like, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Why would anyone want a U.S. dollar? We don't believe in fiat. We're Bitcoin. And I'm like, well, I'm there with you, obviously. I'm a big Bitcoin supporter, but I disagree with you that our industry doesn't need dollars. I still pay most of my bills in dollars, and forget me, right? The people in the developing world, like we talk about the potential for financial inclusion. Look at Latin America, look at Africa, look at Southeast Asia. They don't have access to the financial system. And when they first enter the financial system, they don't want Bitcoin. They're just trying to get their hands on U.S. dollars and get a bank account, which they've never been able to have. A majority of the world's population is on or underbanked. We're not going to be able to communicate to them the value proposition of Bitcoin. But I can promise you that all of those people want U.S. dollars. They're begging for U.S. dollars. So let's put U.S. dollars on the blockchain, and let's put that into a mobile wallet so that people in the developing world can get their hands on dollars using a blockchain-based wallet. And if half the population of the planet is using a blockchain wallet, Bitcoin is very accessible to them. They're already using a version of PayPal that is blockchain or Bitcoin blockchain based, And so upselling them or presenting to them the value proposition of Bitcoin will be much easier. I said, that's one reason. And more importantly, most people want to move their money from this exchange or to that exchange, or sometimes people want to go long and then they want to go short crypto. Right now, without having a digital dollar, you have to withdraw your money to a bank account in dollars. It takes weeks. I said, I'm convinced there's a huge demand for anyone that trades crypto to want a dollar pair, a digital dollar pairing that they can withdraw and not hold it at the exchange, withdraw and send it to another exchange. And everyone at the time looked at me like, I was silly. And what we've seen now is Tether has succeeded clearly despite all of its challenges. And it's doing $35 billion a day. It's doing trillions of dollars a year of transaction volume. It's bigger than Bitcoin.
And that's become the killer app. And, just like when they invented the phone, Bell was thinking, this might be interesting for people to be listening to concerts across the country instead of the one-to-one technology that everybody now has mobilely. Your original thought was to be able to go and provide access, which technologically can still do, but my God, it's just, because of the slowness and time lags built in for middlemen to take their piece, you can't do very active trading when you're trading things in dollars when all of a sudden you're trying to take one position and then trying to get back into Bitcoin, where it's instant with Tether, and therefore every major exchange has adopted it. And it's like you said, any days is the number one above Bitcoin with volume, and even in market cap, it's become very large. I know you're interested in other types of stable coins. Any ones that you can talk about yet?
Well, I think that the Maker DAO is very interesting. We evaluate that concept, at the time. We chose to go with the Tether model of it being asset-backed because it was simpler. There were still concerns and questions about whether the Maker DAO model could work, but a very interesting idea. And so, but the idea of just putting dollars in bank accounts, a federated network of bank accounts, seemed to be the simplest, easiest solution to execute and for people to understand. Now, clearly, banking for crypto companies hasn't gotten that much easier. And so Tether has had challenges, with, crypto capital and, banking in general. And so it's not been easy. It clearly has not delivered on the original intention in that regard, not because of, I'd say, bad intentions, but just all
I think there's a disconnect in the way the regulators view crypto and what it's actually used for. Nobody goes and puts money into Tether because they're expecting to go and withdraw it for dollars and the bank account wherever it's housed at the moment, whether it was Puerto Rico for a while or whatever. They're doing it for that instant transactional value, and whether it's 100% back or for seconds and 70% back, it's still a lot more stable than the banks that are backed $1 for every 35 that they have and at the mercy of the repo market. So I think that there's a fundamental misunderstanding. I was going to pivot before I then move to EOS about your thoughts on Libra appearing to be dead on arrival and just really, even with impeachment talk and everything else, slowing people down. Boy, they came together quick to just condemn Facebook for all sorts of reasons that had nothing to do with what its mission was. And does that basically play into the hands of the Chinese now basically copying and pasting the entire same model onto Alipay or WeChat?
Well, just to add to your last comment, the best banks, maybe have 9% of the assets, whereas Tether on its worst day has 70% asset backing, and even the assets that weren't there were seized by a government, so I'd say they're safe. They're just not accessible. And so, Tether on its worst day is far better than any bank in the world in terms of, being asset backed or having the assets present. In terms of Libra, as I always say, I'm chain agnostic. I don't like the story of my chain is better than your chain or my coin is better than your coin. It reminds me a lot of religious fundamentalism. I believe in innovation, and I support anyone in the space that's innovating with good intentions. Now, I can't speak for Libra or Facebook's intentions, but my natural tendency, the first position I take towards any project is one of positivity. I'm really happy to see big companies like Libra supporting, or Facebook supporting blockchain, and recognizing that the work that we're doing here is real and has the potential to change the world. So I think it's an incredible validation, just like with JP Morgan Coin. I think JP Morgan Coin was great for our industry. Jamie Dimon told the world, as the CEO of JP Morgan, that this is real. This technology works. JP Morgan and me as CEO believe in it. Now, he may not believe in Bitcoin, but that was still a major validating event for our industry. And in the end, how successful was his product? Yawn. So that was good for us. Facebook validating us is also good for us. Before it was bankers validating us, now it's leading technology companies who clearly are a lot smarter when it comes to this type of stuff. I'll give it, the banks understand finance better, but when it comes to technology and reach, Facebook has access to billions of people, and the idea of putting this technology into the hands of billions of people, I think is a very good thing for our overall industry. Another great thing that they've done is they're taking most of the arrows, clearly at a time where regulators are, concerned and asking questions, and they're taking all the heat. Most of all the attention right now by government and regulators is focused on Facebook, which is good. Even what we consider to be our biggest, most successful startups, companies like Coinbase, for example, they would have a very, very hard time dealing with the level of government scrutiny that Facebook is having to deal with. Fortunately, Facebook is a big company with lots of money. Now, another example of that would be Telegram, right? We don't criticize Telegram, but the idea that Telegram is in the business and has access to this very, very large number of users is a big deal. And now Telegram is dealing with the regulators. The nice thing is the Facebooks of the world are dealing with all the regulatory issues. The Telegrams of the world are dealing with all of our regulatory issues. And they have the potential to bring it to lots of users. So I'm a fan. I have no idea what the outcome will be. Again, why I'm agnostic is I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who's going to win. And when I say who, I don't mean a singular thing. Which number of projects are going to be successful over the long run. And I believe that if anyone succeeds in making the world a better place, bringing financial transparency to the world, bringing financial inclusion to the world, bringing immutable record keeping to the world so that, we can rely on information and it's not being edited by the powers that be. If anyone succeeds in making the world a better place, we all win. So, as long as you're trying to make the world a better place, I am rooting for you. I have no idea what's going to happen. I have an opinion about projects, but my opinions change regularly. Clearly, Libra is, having a hard time, as is Telegram right now. But by the way, good for all of the small players. Good for all the small and medium entrepreneurial blockchain and crypto companies. This is all good news, I think, right now. I'm not seeing any reason to be overly concerned. I think it's all good.
Good for Sense, good for Elixir.
Oh, yeah, Sense might be the biggest beneficiary, when it comes to or Elixir or any of the messaging companies, right? Telegram being put on hold for probably a year or two, or indefinitely, makes all of the other blockchain-based messaging plays look much more compelling, because the biggest issue you would have looking at any of these as well, how are they going to compete with Telegram? Now it looks like they're going to have a big window of opportunity. And then Facebook at the same time, right? Libra and Facebook, they're a social network, yeah, but they're as much a messaging company as they are anything else. So the fact that the two large messaging companies that have been making place in blockchain are both being held up for what will be, looks like a foreseeable future. I would say it's a reason to go take a look at the blockchain-based messaging companies, white papers, products, and it's just common sense, I think, to kick the tires and give them a close look. Yeah, and if anyone ever wants to message me privately, You can download the Sense app. It's Sense, like make sense, S-E-N-S-E, Sense. And you can find me on the Sense platform as the Pied Piper.
So we're gonna wrap up then with Block 1 and EOS. So in the early days of Mastercoin, about the only other person who was really doing serious development, I remember having a meeting with I think all of us, looking to talk to different attorneys, or hire Marcus Vittoria or Jacob Farber to educate them in the space because they've done something. Was Dan Larimer, and of course his first foray was BitShares. It was not too much after Mastercoin, and then he then did Steven with Ed Scott, and then his third act, obviously most successful, is where you and other pioneers put together the very interesting, in so many ways, model of Block 21 with block producers. So technologically, financially, speed, power, adaptability. Tell us a little bit about the vision of EOS and where your focus is with EOS going forward, because I know it's really more in the community of the EOS sector.
Well, I think that we're in our third act, kind of where blockchain innovation is, where, I think we've gone as far down the rabbit hole as we need to in terms of kind of theoretical use cases. I think that those stones are largely turned over. And the main, I think, area of focus right now is really around scalability. And the question is, what is the right approach to scale? And what are the right applications? A lot of things don't need to be built on blockchain, or only certain functions of the product need to be built on blockchain, right? I mean, to run something on Ethereum in its current architecture, or Bitcoin, it costs 1,000 times more than it does at AWS, because you're using, 1,000 times more infrastructure. In the case of EOS, because it's 21 block producers, it only costs 21 times more than running on a singular instance, right? To run something on EOS is 21 times more expensive than running it on a singular instance. You don't have the redundancy, you don't have this, okay, maybe it's 7 times, right? And the question is, what applications do you run on systems that are going to require more capital? What functions do you put on those systems, and what are the reasons for doing it? Not everything should run on a blockchain. Not every aspect of a product needs to be decentralized. And see, these are the things that I've spent the last few years, analyzing and trying to understand. And so the delegated proof of stake model, using call it 21 block producers in this instance, I think it's very interesting. I think it has, great potential for, solving the scalability needs that we have in blockchain as we, continue to mature. I even think that EOS, from a currency perspective, has interesting applications. I still think Bitcoin is the most compelling of the currency applications, but I don't know what the future holds, and so I don't sign up for the Bitcoin has won, even though the market cap represents the majority of people believe that that's the most likely outcome, and I share that view. But I believe that we're building open source systems, and if you're going to build open source systems, you need to maintain an open mind. And I continue to look at the market and ask myself, what can happen? And I think that we're going to see, 3 or so tokens emerge that become the most viable contenders for kind of currency, and I don't think that we're going to be limited to just Bitcoin, because I don't think we're going to be limited to just a proof of work system. I think that we're going to see multiple approaches to solving that problem over time. It could be Ripple Stellar, it could be something that hasn't even been released yet. And I think that the market caps will represent that. One will be the dominant, largest market cap, one will be a distant second, and one will be a distant third. And those positions may vary over time, based upon the sentiment of the market and its belief as to, what's the most viable. But I do not believe that we've really reached a point where there's clear technological superiority or even market share, superiority around any one of these systems to say that that the jury is in. And so there's that aspect of it. And then there's also the application side, right? Decentralized apps, decentralized finance, decentralized gaming, and whatever other applications you believe are right for decentralization. Those are clearly not going to run on Bitcoin. Maybe Bitcoin SV, probably not, but maybe. They theoretically could run on Ethereum, but not until Ethereum 2.0 comes out. EOS is right now leading in that area for decentralized applications because of its ability to scale. But that again, too, that's leading today. This is a long race, and there's still many years ahead, and a lot can happen between now and then. But if you're an application developer and you're looking at building decentralized apps, I think you have to look at EOS. If you're at the event and you're coming to WCC, please make sure to come by the EOS Pavilion and take a moment to learn. One of the arguments you may have heard is that EOS is centralized. I believe that's an absolute lie. The question that is true is, how decentralized is it? And this is one of the trade-offs that we make as we look at blockchains. Is the goal to be completely decentralized, or on a scale of 0 to 10, how decentralized do you need to be? And that really depends on what you're trying to build, and how big a role censorship, sort of resistance plays in it. And I can point to flaws of centralization around Bitcoin and Ethereum and all of these systems, right? There's trade-offs in every one of these systems, and there's things that we can look at in areas in which we hope to improve over time. But if you're looking at building decentralized apps, EOS is clearly it. And the only area in which I would agree with people of where EOS is centralized right now is around its block producers. What EOS has got to solve in the next 6 months is the block producers. We're getting too many block producers from one geography. The block producer turnover is not happening rapidly enough. The block producers in the top 21 are not necessarily the best performing block producers, and there are some serious concerns and serious issues around that aspect of governance. And if the EOS mainnet can't solve those governance issues, I will take back my statement, not take it back, but I will say that EOS has become more centralized than it was intended to be, and it's become a problem. And for those reasons, I'm going to start looking at other systems. But I don't think that we're at that point yet. And clearly, the people that we're making, they call it it's not decentralized argument, weren't even pointing to the issues I'm raising. They were just pointing to what I think of as the typical bias of people that are bag holders. Most of the time when someone says this coin is no good or this coin is good, they're really only talking about the coin that they carry, and they're not using an open-minded or objective sort of view on this stuff. Most of them are not even educated on the topic in which they're covering, though they're becoming more right in their statement because of governance issues that they've probably not undertaken.